Goalie gets pulled. Blues can't get it. Jets bring it in. Barron shoots and scores. That'll do it. Jets beat the Blues 4-2 tonight in Winnipeg. Blues allow 30 shots on goal for the 5th consecutive game. And the record drops to 500 at 2-2-1.
We're not moving it quick enough a lot of times. We're not giving it to the D. They're wide open. We got to move it. We got to give it to the D more. We got to forward check harder and win more battles on our forward check so we can have more possession time. That's basically it.
That was Craig Berube last night after the game. That voice you heard was Chris Kerber's as well on the call last night right here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario until 2 o'clock right here on 101 ESPN. Alex, another rough one last night. 4-2 loss on the road at Winnipeg. Team is now already in Calgary where it is a balmy 10 degrees outside with 2 feet of snow.
Better than Winnipeg.
Love to see it. Alex, there was a little bit of discussion there at the end from Chris Kerber on the number of shots that the Blues allowed. I'm not even so much worried about that. A lot of those are coming from the outside. That's something that you're going to live with this defense. The problem that I have is the other number of shots from that game last night. It's the offensive shot attempts. 20 shots on goal, man? Again? We're doing this again? My dear friend Alex Ferrario yesterday told us on the show at the end of the day, hey, this is another game where your offense should be able to get back on track. You've told me this now, Alex, and you are a smart hockey man. I believe that you have you've been diving into the numbers.
Delvin Perez.
I've been diving into them numbers.
At least you're not farting over there.
You've been diving into the numbers, you've been breaking down the film, and you came to the conclusion, Arizona, Winnipeg, these are 2 teams you could take advantage of offensively. Well, I haven't seen a whole lot of that from this here Blues team, Alex. I might not speak well, but I watch well. And when I watch, this team doesn't seem to be putting a whole lot of opportunities on net. What the hell is going on?
Look, it's exactly what Craig Berube says, and I'll use his quote from the Arizona Coyotes game. Our passing is atrocious. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah,
TPK's in my own head now. Look, there's no there's no zone time. There's no push in the offensive zone for this team. It's more or less you get it in, you take a shot, and you're coming back the other way. Jeremy Rutherford put this one out there, what was it, earlier today or last night, of the breakdown with the Blues, and they're being out-attempted 336 to 234 in five games so far.
I'm no hockey expert. Doesn't sound ideal.
He broke it down 60 for Dallas. This is shot attempts. Blues with 48. 65 for Seattle. Blues with 57. 69 for Arizona. 45 for the Blues. 83 for Pittsburgh. 45 for the Blues. 59 for Winnipeg. 39 for the Blues. It's just getting decreasingly worse as we go on. And there's no ability to get the puck back. That's what I was talking about last night on postgame. It goes in, you'll have somebody that goes after it, and then the other team has 2 guys on it, and the next thing you know, it's coming the other way. Steve Ott has talked about puck support, 10-foot support. There was no 10-foot support. Darren Pang used to break it down as when you're watching it on television, if there are 5 guys in your camera in the screen on the television, you know they're playing well. And that game last night, that's not the case.
I saw 1.
Probably. And then on top of that, you add in the defensive zone turnovers that took place last night. Now you got a group of guys who are gassed on the ice, and when they get their scoring opportunities, they've already been on the ice for 1 minute and 25 seconds, and they got to get a line shift. And by the time you get the line shift out, well, then the next team's already pressuring you into the zone. It's a vicious cycle right now, and all of this stems from nobody winning puck battles in the offensive zone.
So, Alex, I'm a bit of a numbers nerd. Now,
you're not
I'm mad at a lot of the numbers nerds right now. What they're doing with baseball, what they're trying to do with the NFL, where ESPN put out this stupid ranking yesterday, where they're trying to tell me that Tank Dell is a better wide receiver than Tyreek Hill. Stop it. Numbers nerds, you're going too far. However, in this specific area, I am still a numbers nerd. I think Corsi rating matters. I think having more offensive opportunities than your opponent, more puck control than your opponent, is generally considered to be a good thing, right? There are places where it can be kind of relied upon too much. I think Dom over at The Athletic, he looks at some of this stuff a little too much, maybe.
Nerd.
However, when you are historically bad in this regard, I think it matters. The Blues so far, through their first 5 games, Alex, have their fewest shots on goal through 5 games since 2005. In fact, there is only one other season in franchise history in which the Blues had fewer shot attempts through 5 games on net than what they do this year.
Had to be 2019 when they won the Cup.
1978.
Oh, no.
They finished with the number 2 overall pick that year.
Ooh.
In 2005, they finished with the number 1 overall pick that year.
Oh, that was the Eric Johnson year.
Yeah.
Crap.
The other 2 seasons, when they were this bad at putting pucks on net, you finished with the top 2 pick. So when we're sounding the alarms here of, guys, this is really problematic, that's why. Because the only company that you're keeping right now is 2 of the worst teams that we've ever seen in the history of the Blues organization. That's where we're at right now.
Okay, let's not get too panicked, BK.
I'm panicked, dude.
Like, come
I am
on, man.
really worried about this, and I don't think I'm overreacting any longer. I now think it is time to sound the alarm bells, because if you can't score, you can't win.
The draft is coming. The draft is coming.
The math is mathin' for me right now, and you are not putting pucks on net, dude. It's bad, and it's boring, and it sucks to watch.
It's boring, and you better get used to that one, because that's just in place. You want to know the part that's most concerning to me? The third
Is that you missed out on Bedard because you did this a year too late?
Yeah, that's also very true.
Dang it.
Well, but you could get a good defenseman in the top 3 if you decide to go that route. No,
It's like 10 of, I'm already looking at the draft. It's like 10 of the top 15 prospects are on defensemen.
Here's the part that's concerning to me. The first game against Dallas, you entered the third period in a 1-1 tie. You have 3 shots on goal. Seattle Kraken game, you enter the third period 1-1 tie. You have 11 shots on goal. Third period, you enter it down by 2, 4 shots on goal. Pittsburgh game, you enter it up by 2 goals, you have 4 shots on goal. Last night, you're down by a goal, you have 4 shots on goal in the third period.
They've had 4 shots on goal in the third period in each of the last 3 games.
That's
4
problematic.
total in the third period. Do you know how hard that is?
That's problematic because when you're down by a goal, tied, there's no push to try and take the edge. It feels a lot like this Blues team is playing this I don't want to make a mistake on the defensive zone, so I'm not going to take a chance on the offensive zone, and I'm just going to wait for my chances to come to me. That's fine if you're elite defensively, but the problem with this is you're not. You turn the puck over in the defensive zone, which means you're scrambling to try and make up for the mistakes you're making in the defensive zone, which means you have 0 opportunities in the offensive zone, and when you get those opportunities, you're missing the net. So all of this, yeah, I can understand the red alarm bells. Now, I'm the positive one. I'm the sane one on this show. So I'm going to keep hearing saying that the Blues will be fine. But
do you believe it? Say it with your chest if you really believe it, because I don't know if you believe it this time around.
Man,
People should keep listening. You should definitely tune in for all 82 games right here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. The season's going to be interesting.
I think they can get it right.
Curbs and Joey are super entertaining. Alex does a great job with pre and post.
I believe they can get it right. I'm very concerned that when you do start getting those offensive opportunities, you don't have the guys who can actually put it in the back of the net. And that's my concern.
Feels problematic.
Very problematic.
They feel like right now a team that is feels like they're like a 2-goal underdog, and they just sit back defensively and go, oh man, I hope we get to overtime. That's what it feels like right now.
Yeah, they're the soccer team that's just parking the bus.
Yeah, they're going to put they're putting the soccer team that puts 11 guys in the box and it's like, okay, score on this.
And you hope like hell you win in transition.
Yeah.
That's the only opportunity right now that the Blues seem to have to score. Last night, by the way, credit where it's due. It was not all bad last night. Mostly bad.
Yeah.
Not all bad, though. I thought Jordan Kyrou looked awesome again last night. I think he's been great so far this year. I thought Brandon Saad put together a really nice performance. I think it is past time, honestly, to give Jake Neighbors an opportunity to be a consistent top 9 winger. This is no shot against Sammy Blais. He's not a top 9 player. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. He's making like $1 million. It was a good trade. It's a good signing. Bringing him back, there was nothing wrong with that. But put him on the 4th line, let him have everything that moves, and let Jake Neighbors get those opportunities as a top 9 winger. He's driving offense in a way that Sammy Blais just isn't and frankly can't. So I'd like to see more of that. Neighbors had a good game. Kyrou, good game. Saad, good game. There were a few things to hold on to where you're like, okay, I can see how this is working. Unfortunately, I can point out all of the things that are going well, and there is so many other things that are going poorly that I can point to. Specifically, yo, man, you and me, we were super excited about Jakub Vrana coming into the season.
Yeah.
He played 7 minutes and 49 seconds of even strength ice time last night. Mm-hmm. He had 12 total shifts in the hockey game. For context, Jordan Kyrou had 23. this is not going as any of us anticipated.
That's a result of the bench shortening. The problem there is when the bench shortens late in a game and you're trying to get back
Oscar
into it.
Sundquist had 19 shifts.
Yeah, you want one of your top guys. Well, the 19 shifts are the penalty kill also for
Jake
Oscar
Neighbors
Sundquist.
had 18 shifts.
Penalty kill. You're getting penalty kill time
For a minute 32.
The problem for Verona is you're in the Mike Hoffman situation where you're not getting number one power play unit time. You're getting 2 power play unit time, and you're not going to see the ice
Kevin
as
Hayes
much.
had 18 shifts. There is nothing going right now with Jakub Verona, and this is supposed to be a guy that's helping you with the goal production. His only ability, really, as a player,
some of that's on him, though, man.
For sure,
I mean, like
no doubt.
last night, you play 7 minutes at even strength, and you have 0 shot attempts. Like, you've got to start shooting the puck a little bit more.
Agreed. However, it's kind of hard to get into a rhythm when I'm out here playing 12 shifts. All the things that people said about Dylan Carlson, they currently apply to Jakub Verona. You got to let him work through this stuff. Now, if you want to bench him after the turnover, after the penalty, whatever, fine. But eventually, when you're down by a goal or two at the end of this game, he's a guy I want on the ice. Because you have very few players that are capable at any point in time of putting the puck in the back of the net. He's one of them.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can score 30 goals in a season. And last night, he's not even given the opportunity to do so. I think Craig Berube in general, I think this is just not a great team. I think the roster is a big part of the problem. But last night, I do think there's some fair criticism to go around in terms of how some of these guys are being utilized as well, specifically with Jake Neighbors. Jake Neighbors would be at the top of my list. Jakub Verona not really playing last night is also something that I find to be a little strange.
If I'm going to be optimistic about this, which I will, they have pieces in place on offense. Like, we were all super optimistic about this offense at the end of last year. You're in the same spot at the beginning of this season. It's 5 games in. I believe you need to shuffle up these lines. Like, I love the fact that Saad and Thomas and Kyrou have looked good, but
that line should stick together.
I don't know. Maybe I move Thomas away from Kyrou and see if I could get something going with Robert Thomas elsewhere. Maybe I put Braden Shen in that spot and Thomas plays with
number one
Buchnevich.
center, so I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, move it around and let Thomas play with Buchnevich, and I thought Kapanen had a good game. Like, you're going to have to shuffle up these lines because that Hayes line looked slow. The fourth line has not been getting much done. Jake Neighbors deserves an opportunity, and frankly, the Thomas and Kyrou connection,
Maybe as Thomas with Verona.
As much as we want Thomas and Kyrou to work, Thomas and Kyrou, they're creating some scoring chances, but they're not creating them to the level that we need them. So maybe you need to split them up and try and divide the wealth rather than put it all on one line.
Maybe you say our new top line is Shin, Kyrou, and Saad. I would have no problem with that.
And then Buchnevich, Thomas, and Verona, or Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kapanen. Honestly, I would probably put a Kapanen and Verona with Hayes so I could have some speed and put Neighbors with Thomas and Buchnevich.
I was going to say Neighbors with Thomas and Verona, actually. And then I would go with Buch, Kapanen, and Hayes.
Yeah, they practiced today at 1:30 our time. I would like to see those lines looking different. I don't think it will. Berube's a lot smarter than I am. And frankly, I think you're going to give it a little bit more time to breathe. But right now, all 4 lines just don't have that cohesiveness. And I think I would try and switch it up to try and get it going a little bit more.
That's Alex Ferrario. He's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Blues off tonight. They're back in action tomorrow in Calgary against the Flames. By the way, you think things are going poorly for the Blues? Just wait until you hear about what's going on with the Flames. We'll get into that tomorrow on the show. But coming up next, the Diamondbacks are the most shocking World Series participant since blank. You guys can fill in that blank at 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll give you our nominations coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. We got to tell you about our friends over at Apache Village RV Center. Alex, it's coming up. We're just a few days away. Come see Apache Village on October 28th. Bring a costume. They'll have some pumpkin decorating and some chili available for you as well. It's the Trick or Treat Yourself event to a new RV at Apache Village RV Center. Alex, you're going to go out there. You're going to learn a little bit about what they have to offer. Their lot has basically everything you could ask for. And you're going to be able to meet some of the people that you'll be working with over the coming years, because they're going to help you service your RV after you buy it. It's not just a buy and get out of here, we're going to move you on your merry way. No, with Apache Village RV Center, they're going to become like family for you.
They've got everything. They've got the travel trailers, they've got the toy haulers, fifth wheels, motors, they've got the Keystones, Fleetwoods, everything you can ask for on their 8-acre lot out in Hazelwood. And the best part about this is, if you're a little bit skeptical of getting into the RV lifestyle, or if you're concerned about it all, look, they're not going to be pushy. They're going to walk you through everything that you need to know, make it an easy decision for you, and they've got financing options. So change the way you think of traveling. Go one better. Go Apache Village RV Center.
Strike away. Here he comes. Cave, a fly ball to right field. Over is Carroll. He's got it. And the Arizona Diamondbacks are headed to the World Series. The Diamondbacks have won the National League pennant. And the Fall Classic will return to the desert for the first time in 22 years. The comeback Diamondbacks. The answer backs, and Arizona will represent the National League in the World Series.
What do we think about that? The answer backs. You guys like that? I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Brian Anderson coming up with that one on the fly.
I love BA, but I felt like we forced that one.
Leave the play on words to the pros.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. That's what it sounded like yesterday on Turner Sports as the Arizona Diamondbacks. Wow, what a shocking victory here. Win in Game 7 to beat the Philadelphia Phillies. I gave them zero chance. I mean, zero chance to win this series. I thought they would make quick work with it in Philadelphia. You've got Aaron Nola, you've got Zach Wheeler, you've got this star-studded lineup against this upstart Diamondbacks team, which, hey man, I'm going to give them a ton of credit. They just did all the little things well, and I don't mean to minimize that at all. Like, They finally got back to running, which was nice to see over the last couple of games. That was their identity over the course of the season. And then I think they played scared in the first few games of this series against Philly. They finally got back to their identity. The back end of that bullpen is just completely dominant. And then you've got a few guys in their lineup that broke out at the right time. Ketel Marte, Alex's favorite baseball player for 5 years, was awesome. He ended up winning the NLCS MVP. Corbin Carroll comes up with some massive plays defensively. They were awesome in this series as well. Just all the little things ended up building into big things. So credit to the Diamondbacks for taking care of business. Alex, when I think about this Diamondbacks team, though, the thing that I think about immediately is how shocking it is that they're here. This is a team that had the worst record of any team to make the postseason. They would have been 5 games out of the playoffs in the American League side of things. I think most people picked the Brewers to beat them in the first round. Then certainly most people picked the Diamondbacks to beat them in the NLDS. And I think everybody believed that the Phillies were going to take care of business in the NLCS against them. And now here they are in the World Series. So for you, Alex, and 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If anybody in our listening audience wants to get in on this conversation as well, the Diamondbacks are the most shocking World Series participant since blank. Fill in that blank.
There's a lot of teams that come to mind. The Washington Nationals that did it in 2019. I mean, Kansas City, your team, when they made it that far into this one, that's another one that comes into mind. The part about Arizona and why they're so different from everybody else is 2019, how did they get there? They were dominant on the pitching side of things. Like Strasburg, Scherzer, Patrick Corbin, you couldn't get through them. How did the Kansas City Royals get to that point? Well, they were solid defensively, and they had big-time hitters. This Arizona
lockdown bullpen. That was the first of this era. I mean, 2011 Cardinals did it this way. The Royals just did it with 3 guys at the back end of the pen.
You play 6 innings, and if you don't have the lead,
you're done.
Yeah.
It's game over.
The Arizona Diamondbacks, to me, this season are like death by 1,000 cuts.
For sure.
Like, there's not one thing that I feel like they're elite at other than base running. And, you could be elite at base running, and sometimes that matters, but it doesn't really matter if you're not coming up with hits. But, like you saw Fat on the mound last night. You've seen Merrill Kelly. Is it not pronounced fat? I'm going to say fat because he was fat, PH fat or PF fat in that one. Your pitching wasn't like overwhelmingly scary like the Philadelphia Phillies, where your offense wasn't overwhelmingly scary, but you just knew it was just going to be a knife fight through something like this. And frankly, they're a very special team in that sense because all of those other surprising teams were dominant in something. I mean, this team freaking cut Madison Bumgarner 4 games into the season. Yeah.
He's their highest paid player, by the way.
This felt like
good for him.
This felt like a 2019 Washington Nationals team where you're like, man, they're not going to be any good. You cut Madison Bumgarner.
I mean, this is why we had so many conversations early on in the year about the Cardinals. Hey, they're not out of it just yet. They were. But it felt at the time as if they weren't, because it was the case for the Nationals. It was the case for the Dodgers. It ended up being the case for the Braves. The Phillies last year fired their manager early on. Like, we've seen this in the National League. Teams get off to these weird slow starts, or they have this weird middle portion of the season where the Diamondbacks went 16-34 over a 50-game stretch, the worst 50-game stretch according to ESPN Stats and Info for any World Series team. It's amazing. I cannot still believe that they are here in the World Series. T-Bone, who was the last one that you were this shocked about?
I think it's the 2014 Royals, because I thought about that Nationals team, but when you look back on that Nationals team, like, they had stars. And when I think about that Royals team, I don't know if those guys were stars until they got to October.
For sure.
Because, like, you look at that pitching staff, and that pitching staff was fine. I mean, it was led by James Shield and Yordan Ventura, but they had the bullpen. Like, I remember looking at the team in 2014 going, yeah, they got good pitching, but I just looked this up. Their offense had two guys above league average in OPS plus, and that was Alex Gordon and Lorenzo Cain. Everybody else was below league average.
And then Mike Moustakas got hot in the playoffs.
Moustakas got hot. Hosmer played pretty well, if I remember correctly. Yep. Like, those guys became stars in October. And then, as we saw when they left Kansas City, they never really were the same guys outside of being with the Royals.
They were all very good, but never great.
Exactly. And I think that's why I think the 2014 team is the last team that I can think of that would fit this Diamondbacks team. And the Diamondbacks have some resemblance of them, because I think you could argue Shields and Ventura from that team are like Gallen and Merrill Kelly for the Diamondbacks. And then there's kind of like
Vargas is their version of Fott.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at their bullpen. I don't think it's as deep as that Royals one because they had 3 just legitimate studs at the back end. But Kevin Ginkel and Paul Sewald have not allowed a run in this postseason. They basically have cut games down to really the only time you're going to catch them is maybe the 7th inning. And that's if like
that was
you
the
don't.
game last night, by the way. The game last night came down to whether or not the Phillies were going to score in that 7th inning. They weren't able to push any runs across. I think it was 1 out, 2 on, if I'm not mistaken in the situation. And they got out of it because Ginkel came in and they shut things down immediately. So that was the game last night. They didn't get to it there. And I looked over at Kara. I said, that's game. The Phillies can't come back at this point because if you didn't get it there, you're not going to be able to do it again because they're going to shut you down to the point where you don't have the middle of your order coming up again.
And you watch that Phillies team just break mentally. Like once they went to,
you could feel it. Even the atmosphere at the stadium, you could feel the fans were depleted.
They were swinging and missing at everything. They were reaching for balls. They were throwing their bats, breaking them. Like you saw that team was mentally broke.
So mad. He was so mad.
And you can tell, like when you have a team like the Diamondbacks who can basically shut things down with their top 2 starters for 6 innings, and then they can shut things down in the 8th and 9th. You leave 1 inning. That's all you have to cover is 1 inning. Can you figure out that 1 inning? And as we've seen, they've been able to. They've been using the matchups with Mantiply, Salbrink, the righty that I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. But they've been able to basically cut games down to 1 inning where you can take advantage of their bullpen, and that's it. Now, game 3, game 4, when you get in this World Series, that's when it's going to get interesting because you're going to have Fott, who they're going to be playing matchups with, and game 4 is probably going to be a bullpen game. But they are just built to where, okay, we've got 2 dogs at the front of our rotation, and if we can somehow just scrap and claw, to your point, get a lead in that game and get to that 8th inning, we're going to be fine.
The 3 most shocking teams that I can remember in like the last 15, 20 years, the Royals in 2014, totally with you. They were 48-50 through the first 98 games of that season. Ended up adding basically nothing. It was Josh Willingham at the trade deadline. That was their big offseason or big trade deadline move. And then they end up going to the World Series, and they slugged their way through the first 3 rounds of the postseason, find a way to get to the World Series, and then they got Madison Bumgarnered. But that was a team that I think most people nationally were shocked to see their health. In Kansas City, everybody was shocked to see that team. 2015 was a legitimately good team. 2014 just got hot at the right time.
They didn't have a 20 home run hitter.
Yeah, their offense was really bad for most of the season. And then they got to the playoffs, and it was like, holy bleep. Okay, so this is the talent they were talking about. Other than that, I think the 2007 Rockies felt pretty shocking at the time to get there, and then they just got boat raced by the Red Sox. And before then, I think you have to go back to the 2006 Cardinals. Now, the difference between that Cardinals team, though, and what we're watching right now, the Cardinals team was just hurt most of the year. They didn't have their dudes. And so, yeah, you look at their record from the regular season, and you're like, man, that was not a very good playoff team. But then you look at the talent that was assembled. It was basically the same team as they had in 2003 through 2005 when they were one of the best teams in baseball. They just got hurt. They didn't have the same dudes on the field on a regular basis throughout the course of the season. I mean, you guys know the story. And then they got hot at the right time. They got guys back. They were healthy, and they end up going to the World Series. So that team felt shocking, but it probably wasn't as shocking as what we're watching right now because this team didn't get guys back from the IL or anything. They just played really well. They just played really well. They took advantage of the rules as they're stated right now, and now they're in the World Series. And they took advantage of a team that choked. If we're being honest, part of the story here is that Philadelphia choked. Craig Kimbrell was terrible and allowed the Diamondbacks back into the series over a 2-game stretch. That's really where the season flipped and the series flipped for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this Diamondbacks team, to your point, you look at that 06 team, they had Hall of Famers on it. I think Roland was on that team, Pujols on that team, Molina on that team. The Rockies didn't really, Todd Helton, arguably a Hall of Famer. But then you look at this team, it's hard to project forward who's a Hall of Fame player on this Arizona Diamondbacks team.
Carroll.
Madison Bumgarner.
Maybe. We're still very young in his career now. But
what? He's going to be a 4-time World Series champion.
But Bumgarner will be I think should and will be a Hall of Famer. But he's not on the team, man.
Yeah.
No, he's on the team. He's on the damn payroll. We're paying him our money. He's on the damn team.
But to my point, this is a team that has felt just good all year long. And really, to me, the upsets over Milwaukee and to the Dodgers, I know a lot of people look at those oh my gosh, it's an upset. You could see how they could beat them.
Yeah.
I did not see a scenario.
Really helped. And that's the similarity to the Royals as well. The Royals in 2014 went through the Angels, who had a few stars, but we know the Angels are not a particularly well-constructed team, and that pitching staff was awful. If you go back and look at the 2014 Angels, you're like, how did this? I think they won 100 games that year. It's like, how did this happen? That doesn't even make sense. So that was part of the story there as well. But I think part of this was the path.
Yeah,
the path certainly helps the Diamondbacks. I do think people are mad online about the format again. I don't want to get too far into it, but if you want to change the format, I think there's two things that you do to prevent people from being so mad. One, I think you reseed after the wild card round.
Agreed.
I think the Diamondbacks should have had to play the Braves. It should have been the Braves versus the Diamondbacks in the DS, and it should have been the Phillies versus the Dodgers. And I think you would have ended up with the Phillies versus the Braves in the NLCS as a result of that. Who knows? Maybe the Diamondbacks would have beat the Braves, but it would have been a much more difficult path. The other thing that I think that you should do, and I heard this on the Athletics Baseball podcast, and I think it's a great idea because now it just shuts everybody up. They should give the top two division winners the opportunity to decide, do you want to play in the wild card round or do you want the bye? You choose. Because then everybody can shut up about the fact that the rest is something that is bad because teams will choose the bye. They will. 100% of teams will say, yeah, we don't want to play in the roulette game that is the wild card series. It's not worth it for us. We want the bye because we want to get out of the 50-50 proposition that is a wild card series. So they will choose the bye. They will advance to the NLDS immediately, and then we don't have to hear about that anymore. But the biggest change that I would make is just you got to reseed after the wild card round. And if you do that, Diamondbacks may still be here, but it would have been a different path for sure. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get to questions and answers. But next, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters, boys. The NFL trade deadline is now 1 week away. It seems like there are some names that are notable that are starting to become legitimate trade targets. We'll talk about some of those next here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks, Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues fall to the Winnipeg Jets last night 4-2, and they'll be back in action on Thursday when they visit the Calgary Flames. We'll have pregame coverage starting Thursday at 7 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 8. And last night, the Arizona D-backs defeated the Philadelphia Phillies in Game 7 to advance to the World Series, where they'll be taking on the Texas Rangers. And Game 1 of that series will be on Friday. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Let's start with this, guys. The Browns have signed P.J. Walker to their active roster.
Oh, good.
Wait.
Does
Didn't he
Deshaun
start?
Watson want to play football?
Yeah,
Wait, I have a question.
Hasn't he started 2 games for him?
How did you just get signed?
So the NFL's rules with the practice squad are weird now. Basically, you can elevate a player multiple times over the course of the season. Like,
Is this
technically,
the
Darrell
minors?
Henderson was on the Rams practice squad on, like, Saturday. And so everybody that picked up, Zach Evans? I was one of those people. Friday night, you're like, wait. Hold on, Zach Evans is their 3rd string running back, but they have no other running backs on the roster. It was like, yeah, because they've got Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson on the practice squad. It's like, yeah, but one of those guys is on the active roster, the other guys aren't. I don't understand. The NFL's weird now, but
Good.
yeah. The way that it works, long story short, too long didn't read, P.J. Walker appears to be the starter for the Browns now.
Too long didn't read.
Does Deshaun Watson want to play?
No, man.
Does he just want to get his $200 million and go home?
Hey, don't blame him.
Did anybody else think when Schefter tweeted out what his injury was? God, what was it? Where Ron Burgundy and Anchorman?
My tummy hurt. No, sorry, it was actually my shoulder. My shoulder hurts.
Ron Burgundy and Anchorman, when what's her face walks in and he's doing iron pumps, and he's like, sorry, my fibulosis over here on the right shoulder. It just gets worked out, so I got to make sure I pump some iron.
His agent needs to shut the hell up. Stop talking, man. We know. Yeah, okay, he's hurt. Cool. I watched the quarterback documentary in which Kirk Cousins could barely breathe on the field for 7 consecutive weeks because he had some kind of broken or fractured ribs. And the dude was going out there behind an offensive line that was held together with toothpicks and bubble gum. He was like, hey, I got to go out there for my team. I respect the hell out of Kirk Cousins. You know who I don't respect for a million different reasons? Deshaun Watson. This guy's a bum, man. I'm so done with him.
I mean, he is a
and
bum.
The Browns have no way to get out of this.
No.
They're stuck.
Man, I loved when it was the press conference last week because it felt like a benching last week. That's what it felt like.
They couldn't get their story straight. He was like, oh, the doctor told me not to go in. And then the head coach comes out and says, yeah, he was medically clear.
Yeah. And he goes, he's going to start next week. Deshaun Watson comes to the podium and goes, it just depends on how everything feels. It's just like, dude, man, if you don't want to play football, just tell the coaching staff, man. He clearly doesn't want to play. Yeah, it's bad. It's a disaster in Cleveland.
They should bench him for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
They're better with P.J. Walker anyway.
I respect the hell out of it if Stefanski did it.
They should trade again. Try to bring back the dude that started for them last year, Jacoby Brissett. He was better. They were better with Jacoby Brissett.
Who's he got? Colts?
Washington.
I think he's with Washington.
Yeah,
And they've got
Washington
Sam Howell, who was just sitting on his butt half the game.
Washington ain't going to do that trade.
Yeah, Washington
Atlanta
may
should
need
be
to
like,
start
we'll
him.
They
take
should
his
trade for
problems.
Josh Downs. Josh Downs.
Josh Downs is a wide receiver. You're going to put a wide
Not
receiver
Josh
as
Downs.
quarterback?
Josh Dobbs. Trade for Josh Downs. See if he can play quarterback.
Josh Downs, you're going to put a wide receiver? It's not that bad,
Josh
man.
Dobbs is significantly better than Deshaun Watson at this point in their respective careers. Significantly better. And it sounds like Kyler Murray's coming back in a couple of weeks. Trade for him.
Trade for Kyler Murray.
Sure. Get both of their miserable
up.
behinds.
Wow. You're going to trade for the Cardinals quarterbacks.
Oh, my God. That quarterback room would be awful. I'd feel bad for the quarterbacks, coach.
Cleveland should be one of the best teams in the AFC, but they've got this bum at quarterback. All right, anyways, let's get into some more NFL quick hitters. I'm done talking about them.
You're angry.
Tomorrow night,
Just 'cause he's on his
it's been a
team.
weird start to the show, man.
You're an angry elf.
I'm actually in a great mood today. Had a good coffee date with my wife this morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you know.
Just leave your kid at home?
No, we took him to daycare.
Oh, okay, good. Just holding you accountable, man.
Hey,
That's
you know
where-
why he went to a coffee shop so he didn't go home and lay down?
I was going to say, yeah. Told Karen's like, I can't go home and sleep.
I'm spending money now to avoid the alarm issues. All right, tomorrow night, Buccaneers on the road at the Bills. Guys, I think this is a must-win.
For who?
Yes. I think this is a must-win for the Buffalo Bills. You cannot lose this game. Thursday Night Football is weird. They're Thank God at home. But next week, they're on the road at Cincinnati. Huge game for both teams. That's a Sunday night football game. They're coming off of an atrocious loss at home or on the road against New England. Alex, this is coming off of a terrible performance as well that they probably should have lost against the New York Giants. They should be losers of 3 straight. They should be 3-4 on this season so far. Tomorrow night's a must-win, right?
Absolutely it is. I mean, and I know Tanner was joking, but both absolutely probably should be. But like I view this one as a Buffalo moment where you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, this is the time to prove, like, are you still in the conversation with these top teams in the AFC, or are you about to be the fake one out of the group that says, oh, yeah, they're supposed to be the Super Bowl
contenders?
contenders.
Know there's frauds, but...
Well, I don't know if we do, because
do we?
Sometimes they feel like they're, like, legit contenders.
Oh, they're definitely going to beat one of Cincinnati, Philly, or Kansas City. Like, they will absolutely do that.
And that's
going to
be the moment where we fall for them, and then the next... What?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I'll fall for
I
them.
know this magician.
Not this time.
Yeah, I know magic's not real, and I know that bunny was always in that hat. That's what I know. I know these bills are
I didn't
fake.
have a coin in my ear, man.
Yeah.
It's not real. Can't trick me.
Where are my hands?
Like,
over here.
This is a must-win for them. But the reason they lose this game is because they're quarterback. Like, if they're going to lose, it's because Josh Allen sucks.
Get the hell out of here.
And by the way, the reason they're going to win
It's
is
Josh
because of the
Allen.
quarterback.
Yeah, like, they have clearly a better roster. There's a reason they're favored by 8.5. They are the better football team. But I don't trust Josh Allen enough to say that I can guarantee they're going to win that football game. I'm not falling for him again.
Can I give you guys a bet that I thought about placing last night? Tell me if I'm the dumbest person in the world for placing this.
Well, you're the dumbest person in the world for actually thinking you could make a bet.
No, that's true. I'm actually okay on futures for the most part. It's the game sides that I'm just the worst sports bettor in the world
I
at.
can't talk trash. Neither can Tanner after this past week.
So Cincinnati right now is 6-1 to win their division. They are at 3-3 on the season. Baltimore is currently leading the division at 5-2. They have the longest odds Cincinnati does to win the AFC North. I think that's wrong. The New York Jets are currently at 4-1 to win their division in the AFC East. The Bills, we've all said, are frauds. The Dolphins are atop that division, but that was a big loss for them this past weekend against Philadelphia.
Also
to take
frauds.
Them to 5-2. The New York Jets are 3-3. Here is their upcoming schedule. The Giants, the Chargers, the Raiders. Those are the next 3 weeks. If they go 3-0 in that stretch, you are now to 6-3 on the season with head-to-head matchups over the next 2 weeks against Buffalo and Miami. If you bet a parlay on the Jets and the Bengals to win their divisions, it is 80-1 right now. 80-1 odds for the Jets to win the AFC East and the Bengals to win the AFC North.
Yeah, you're a dummy on
Is
that
that
one.
ridiculous?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know
It absolutely
Miami's
is.
still in the East, right?
Yeah, do I care?
Apparently not.
Yeah, you're trying to just lose money over here.
Yeah. I mean, if we're setting money on fire, sure, go ahead.
Like,
But
It's 80-1 odds.
You
I'm
can
gonna
really
be rich.
you really believe the Bengals
you
are
want
going
a
to
guy
get
that
there?
goes, it's a sale. I'm losing money by not going.
Exactly. I'm actually feeling like I'm burning money on fire by not placing this bet. When we get to December and it's like plus 150 for the Jets to win the AFC East and the Bengals are suddenly the betting favorite to win their division and we didn't place this bet together as a group, we're all going to be upset about it.
I'm not placing that bet with you.
Like, look, I could totally understand you going.
80-1 odds, man.
I like Cincinnati to win their division still.
Place $50 on it and win $4,000.
Yeah, no, you're burning $50, and I don't have that to lose right now.
Alex,
Try and convince
you
me
have
that the
2 kids at
Jets-
home.
No.
I've got one. We got to pay for daycare. It's expensive, dude.
Daycare, diapers.
Yeah, it's all expensive.
You got to pay for electricity in my house.
I think this is the way. This is the way that we win.
You absolutely have your friends go broke, don't you? Because you convince them like this. Don't worry about paying the mortgage this month, man. This is a absolute win. Lock it in. I'm going to win us $8,000.
You don't need to pay your mortgage because I'm about to have you pay your next 7 mortgage payments with this bet.
You're taking the Jets and the Bengals, 2 mediocre teams, to win their division.
Yep.
Yeah. You make that bet over there.
Coming up next,
Yikes.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. I'm pleased.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends, my dentist over at 100 West Dental. Look, I love going over there now, and I was one that hated going to the dentist, but I still went to make sure the teeth were clean, to make sure the gums were clean, and then I had the issue that resulted in the dentist not seeing the tumor and losing 7 teeth, having massive surgery. It was a nightmare. I don't worry about that anymore over at 100 West Dental because they are all about the preventive procedure, the preventive care, making sure that they're taking care of your mouth, your teeth, your overall health with early detections for the long run. They take away that anxiety. They've got the most modern technology that they stay up to date with, and that patient experience is at the front of mind. You walk in, you already feel comfortable. You get in that comfy lounge chair. They clean everything up, make sure you're healthy, and you walk out the door looking forward to your next appointment. And super simple to schedule. All you need to do is you book online 100westdental.com. You don't have to call. You can have a virtual consultation with the doctor. Super easy. So give them a call today, 636-585-0100, or check them out on 100westdental.com.
There's nothing more important than the look and feel of your home, so now's the time to make your home your retreat. Replace your tired old windows and doors with Marvin replacement products designed to improve comfort and efficiency. There's only one choice. Fisher Window and Door Store, a reputable local company and the area's only Marvin authorized installer. Fisher Window and Door will guide you through the entire replacement process. Their experts will help you make the right choice for your home, and they'll measure, design, and install your new windows and doors.
Hi, I'm Jim Fisher. Since 1941, the Fisher family has provided you with quality American-made building products, including Marvin Windows and Doors. Come visit one of our showrooms in Brentwood or East Alton, and let us help you increase the value of your home.
Bring that distinct sense of quality to every room with Marvin. Visit Fisher Window and Doors' huge newly remodeled showroom in Brentwood or Fisher Lumber in East Alton, Illinois. Quality and comfort starts at Fisher Window and Door. Online at fisherwindow.com.
If you're about to trade your car to a dealership or Carvana, stop. It's your car. Why let someone else make thousands off of it? Get full retail value without the retail hassle at sellmycarstl.com. That's sellmycarstl.com. For this week's Fast Lane Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Show off your football knowledge and see if you can top the Fast Lane and the dudes from the Rizzuto Show on the point. For this week's top score, it's the Fast Lane and the Riz Show throwing down all football season. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's PK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Alex, I want to bring the conversation that we just had off air onto the air.
Don't, because I might say foul words that get me in trouble.
So Alex has been really excited all week about some of his situations that are taking place on his fantasy team because of injuries. He is rooting for injuries right now. Yes,
Amen.
that is exactly what's happening.
Amen.
So you see a tweet that says, hey, Jerome Ford's not practicing today because of a high ankle sprain. He's in a boot. He's going to be out for the next couple of weeks. Your response was?
Kareem Hunt, let's go! And then there was a cuss word in there.
And then I said,
Kareem Hunt's not practicing today. Do some damn research. Kareem Hunt, according to Fred Greetham, Hunt says he's ready to carry the load with Jerome Ford injured.
then why isn't he practicing?
Maintenance day, resting his body for the upcoming dominance that's going to take place on the field. Yeah. You keep Pierre Strong on your damn bench. Frankly, this is the problem with your...
I've got Pierre Strong in our league.
This is the problem with our stupid league.
Who did you just pick up today?
I picked up freaking Will Levis. I told myself that, hey, Justin Fields is out. I've got Russell Wilson as one starting quarterback. I need another. Maybe Will Levis can throw bombs to DeAndre Hopkins and Traylon Burks, and I don't even know who else they freaking have on there. I have come to the point where I have convinced myself.
Even playing right now?
No, I'm probably not.
No, I think he's out,
hurt too.
I've come to the point where I'm convincing myself that backup quarterbacks are the smart way to go with this. I'm done with this stupid league. I'm done with it.
As I said during the commercial break, only in our fantasy league, of a super flex league with 14 freaking teams.
I'm done with it.
Would anybody ever be excited about a fourth string running back?
You are the worst commissioner of fantasy football in the history of this.
Our whole league went racing for Darrell Henderson this week in waivers.
I'm done with this.
It's just sad.
I'm done with this
By the way,
stupid
guess you
league.
got him.
Was it you?
This guy, I got Darrell Henderson and Pierre Strong.
How's that possible? I put in a claim for Henderson.
Hey, man, I probably cheated again.
Yeah.
I hate this
Brady
stupid
was right.
league.
You do cheat the waiver wire.
I'm never playing in this league again.
I've got Royce Freeman. I've got Darrell Henderson. I've got all the terrible running backs you could ask for. You guys want them? Send me a trade offer. I'm available. All right. 314-399-9646.
Does anybody got Tyson Badgett that want to hand him over to me?
I've got Gardner Minshew.
I'll take him, actually.
Suddenly, he's like a hot commodity in our league.
Considering I just picked up freaking Will Levis and said maybe I should get Malik whatchamacallit too. And I'll have both of them on my team.
If you got two quarterbacks, maybe you got one.
I'm going to change my team name to Willis and Levis Law Firm, LLC. We'll both be the quarterbacks. And then I got Wilson as well.
Why are you stealing from Marshy's team?
Because it's a stupid name, Marshy. Pick a better one.
Well, you just used it. Never mind. All right, 314-399-9646.
I hate this league and I hate you and I'm never coming home again, ever.
From the 314. BK, any thoughts on the smoke coming out that Ryan Wingo might end up choosing Texas over Mizzou today?
BK, any coincidence with the smoke coming out? I'm like, where are we going with this? Makes sense. Take it away, my friend.
First of all, don't appreciate that. Second of all, I've got a reputation to keep up. Straight-laced.
Yeah, we know.
Third of all, I don't think Ryan Wingo's going to Texas. I think what's happening, this is a guess, speculation, horns down. I think that what's taking place is that it got out publicly that Ryan Wingo's almost certainly going to be picking Mizzou later on today.
Well, who did that?
People around Ryan Wingo.
BK up on his blog.
And I think he wants there to be some intrigue today. Because this is his moment, man. If you're a high school recruit, especially a nationally prominent recruit, this might be the only moment that you get that's like this, where everybody in the country is watching your commitment. And if there's no intrigue surrounding it, well, then why are people watching, right? So give the kid his day. He's going to be able to choose his next school at, I think it's 4:30, something like that, later on this afternoon at SLU. I think it's going to be Mizzou. But the only way for there to be intrigue is if there's a little bit of doubt on that. And the doubt now that is creeping in is that at the last minute, Texas is coming in to give a massive offer to Ryan Wingo to come down and play in Austin. I think he's still going to choose Mizzou, but that's kind of the latest on where things stand with that.
Right, Ryan, I mean, I know you're listening to the show right now with your AirPods in class. If you really want to change things up for this whole committing thing, I would totally flip. I wouldn't go to Mizzou.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line.
Yeah.
From the 314. This is amazing. I can't believe we're already getting this question. Should the Cardinals not take the risk of losing Yadi to a different organization and just make him the manager now for 2024? So fire Ollie, hire Yadier Molina, because in 2025, they might end up losing him.
How would you lose Yadier Molina in 2025?
He would end up going and getting a job elsewhere as a manager.
But that would mean the Cardinals tell him, no, we're not hiring you.
Well, it would mean that Ollie kept his job.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, this your text?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, guys. I probably should have hid that a little bit better.
No, I don't think they should do this. I think that
let the season play itself out, guys.
I know I'm on an island of thinking that Ollie is like, at minimum, a reasonable manager, at best, a pretty good one. But I would just keep Ollie Marmol in his situation and see what the season goes. I would not change this.
Agreed.
That's a hot take.
I play out the year, see where it goes.
Yeah.
If it becomes clear that Oliver Marmol is hurting the team rather than helping them, or at best just being net,
Sure.
then we can have a conversation.
Like, how are we acting as if Yadier Molina is already a perennial manager Hall of Famer?
Does he manage well with Puerto Rico in the WBC?
Like, I understand the fascination with him, but guys, there's a lot more to managing than just being a Hall of Fame caliber player. Like, there's a lot more that goes into it, and I think we should probably pump the brakes on Yadier Molina needs to be the manager. Like, let's see what this looks like as a bench coach before we start handing him the keys to the team.
I remember when the Royals hired George Brett as their hitting coach in 2013, I want to say it was. He lasted 2 weeks because he said he hated it, hated everything about it. Said as a player, he was a great hitter, obviously, one of the best in the history of the sport. The players now look at different things than he did, first of all. And second of all, they don't really listen to him because they want to do their own thing. And then they're waiting for something to go horribly awry before they really go to him. He said, there's too much travel. There's too much time commitment. I just want to go play golf. I don't fear necessarily that that's going to be the case with Yadier Molina, but I think we need to see it before we are certain that that's not going to be the case with Yadi. Because in his final season here, he did want to go back to Puerto Rico for a few different things. He has stuff going on back home that is going to take some of his attention to it away. That doesn't mean he's going to be a bad bench coach. He might be the best bench coach in Major League Baseball next season. But let's see it first before we decide exactly how this is going to end up going. All right, for Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, do the Blues have enough game breakers? Because as I'm watching the games right now, it kind of feels like they've got 2 or 3 dudes that could really create offense, and then a bunch of other guys that are just interchangeable parts. What does that mean for them both in the short and the long term? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
I think defense wins you games. Overall, if you look at our start this year, I think we've done a pretty good job. I think there's been little lulls. That happens, but we need to continue working to get rid of those, and we're gonna find our offense. We're not worried about that. We just need to possess the puck more. I think that's what it comes down to.
Not worried about the offense. They're going to get that figured out. That is according to Blues center Robert Thomas. That was him after the game last night alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Alex, I disagree with him. I am legitimately concerned about the Blues offense right now. And it comes because I just don't know if this team has enough game breakers. And what I mean by that is, as you're watching some of these teams around the league, and there was a good piece earlier today over on The Athletic about how this is a copycat league, and a lot of teams have stolen the same system that the Blues are using right now, which is that zone defense that packs the house in front of the net. They're trying to take away those high danger chances because there's so much speed, there's so much skill in the league. All right, we got to push these guys away because if they're close, they're going to hit it like 60% of the time, right? It's just too high quality of chances. So teams have gone in this direction, and the shot attempts are way down because of it. The offensive numbers are way down because of it, and that is reversing a trend previously in the NHL where offense is actually typically better than the defense/goaltending early in the season. So for the Blues, the problem is these other teams have the game breakers that can, whether it's winning in transition or winning with shots from the outside, they can win that way still. I don't know that the Blues can, Alex. As you look around this roster right now, are the Blues missing game breakers? Is that what we're witnessing?
I think they are. Like, they have guys who can break open a game with their skill. I think of Jordan Kyrou. I think of Robert Thomas, Pavel Buchnevich. I would throw Jakub Vrana into this one. But the problem with this is when they're getting those opportunities, they're opting to pass it rather than take it. It feels like you're getting into situations where you've got a lot of guys that are like, no, you take this opportunity. No, you take this opportunity. Like, you're being as unselfish as possible. Or frankly, right now, you need some guys that can be selfish on this. Like, I'm looking at individual shots. Jordan Kyrou is probably the most, and I'm saying this in a positive manner, selfish player on the team, meaning this dude shoots the puck every chance he's got. 17 shots on goal so far this season through 5 games. But beyond that, like, we're talking 8 shots on goal by Robert Thomas, 7 shots on goal by Jakub Vrana, 6 shots on goal by Braden Shen, 5 by Kapanen. Like, I can continue to go down this length. Whereas if I look at other teams, like the middle tier that we've talked about, you go over to the Nashville Predators, they've got a total of 9 dudes that are in double-digit shots on goal that have played 1 more game than the Blues have. So they've... Like, last night we saw the moment where Jordan Kyrou had 2 breakaways. First one that he didn't get the goal on, understandable. It was a long shift. But that second one you look at and say, that's the moment that you have to break this game wide open.
Man, I think people are being way too critical of that.
I'm not being critical of that.
And I'm sorry, I'm not blaming you on this. I've seen a lot of that on the text line today as well. Dude, it's like hitting a ball really hard in baseball and it going straight at a defender. You can't control that. You make the best shot you can. And the best shooters in the league in the NHL have like a 20% shooting percentage. That means 1 out of every 5 chances is going in the back of the net. It didn't go in, and that sucks, and you wish that it would have for Jordan Kyrou, but like, just because he had 2 breakaways and neither of them went in net doesn't mean he played poorly last night.
No, that has nothing to do with his play being poorly. I thought he was one of the best players on the ice last night. But what I'm saying is when you ask me if they have game breakers, there are guys around the league that when the puck is on their stick, you look at it and you say, man, they're going to score here. I
feel that way about Kyrou, honestly.
I feel that way about Kyrou, but I haven't felt that way about Kyrou so far this season.
I guess.
Last year, 2 years ago, the year that he really broke out, we've talked about it, that it was like watching Brett Hall in his prime, where it's like every time the puck was on a stick, you stopped because you were wondering what he was going to do. I haven't gotten that. Some of that's probably the scheme that they're focusing more on the other side of the ice, which, again, I've seen so many people that have said, it's the same problem from last season. It is the exact opposite problem from last season. Last season, we were complaining about this defense being so bad. And now we're upset that these guys are focusing on the defensive zone. So the game breaker problem, you need some guys that when they get the puck on their stick, they just say, screw it, I'm shooting the puck and I'm going to make a difference in this game, rather than this, let's make the perfect pass to get the perfect play, as Berube labels it, too cute.
Yeah, so as I continue real quick, T-Bone, on that line of thinking, Alex, from the 618, the Air Comfort Service text line is 314-399-9646.
Oh, I'm going to love this one, I bet.
Alex, the team hasn't changed. It's the same team as last year. How do you feel about that? Do you agree?
How is it the same team as last year?
Because they're bad.
No. Touche. But it's not the same team as last year. Last night was the first game that I saw from this team that they were making similar mistakes to last year in terms of defensive zone lapses. But I can go through the amount of games this season that they were as locked in defensively as you can ask for. You know what last year was against the Dallas Stars when they played against them? 6-5 final scores, 5-4 final scores. You know what the game outcome was in that first game, T-Bone? I know you got a memory like an elephant. Think about it.
Wait, which game were we talking about?
2-1 shootout.
Sorry, I was daydreaming at the time when we could score 5 goals.
2-1 shootout loss.
Great.
So it's not the same team. Right now, they're having offensive issues.
I think they're probably talking about the personnel is the same. And I also disagree with that.
It's not.
I think a lot of people, honestly, myself, I can only speak for me. I fell victim to what they did in the final month of the year. Mm-hmm. I watched what they were doing, and I was like, oh, okay, the offense looks pretty good. Kapanen, good goal scorer. Vrana, wow, look at this. They've got a potential 25-plus goal scorer that they just got for basically nothing. I like what Sammy Blais did at the end of last season. I might be down a little too far on what the Blues can be offensively. And I think what we've learned is it's kind of like spring training at the end of the year. The NBA has the same issue where the final month of the season, some of the really young teams around the league, they just start getting shots up. And you're like, oh, man, that guy's going to be a 20-point-per-game player next year. Look at what he did in the final month of the season. And then he gets into the first portion of the season. The big-time teams are playing more seriously. They're not looking for seeding, basically. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, he's a 10-point-per-game player. He's going to play like 20 minutes a night. And for the NHL, I think it's the same thing, where at the end of the season, you can get thrown off a bit on what your team is going to be the following year when you're not a contender. Your team's out of it. They're playing for nothing. There's really no stakes in any of the games. And I think that is what I personally fell victim to. I don't think this team has a lot of offensive players, a lot of offensive firepower.
I think they've got the right guys who have offensive firepower. The problem is you've got too many guys that aren't willing to say, I'm going to be the goal scorer now.
That's exactly what I was going to say. When I think game breaker, I think, okay, if I get the puck on and I'm going probably extreme here, but if I say we need a goal, I need to get the puck to McDavid's stick and he's going to make it happen. They're going to make it happen. And right now, I don't feel like you have that guy. Like, you're down by 1 last night, 2 last night. I don't know if there's a guy I circle and I say, I'm going to get the puck to that guy, and he's going to make this game a 1-goal game, or he's going to tie it. I think Kyrou's got some of that to him, but he's not at the level that it's consistent enough. And the other thing for me, too, is, like, I don't think they have a guy that a team circles and says, the best outcome is we leave tonight and that guy got a point. I think the guys they circle are like Thomas Kyrou, and they go, we can shut them down and put them with 0.
I mean, you've seen it.
There's not, like, you go into a game against the Oilers, and you look at a McDavid, and I know they don't have a McDavid, but I'm using him as the example. You go, all right, the best case scenario is we hold McDavid to, like, 2 points tonight. They don't have any of those guys. Like, I think everybody on this team, I don't think there's
like
a guy.
5 of those guys that you're discussing in the NHL.
I know, but I don't think the Blues have a guy that I think a team fears. Like, who's the guy they fear right now?
I mean, it's Jordan Kyrou. This is
really?
the thing.
I don't think
teams fear that line right now.
Maybe not. I think a lot of this goes down to, like, they've had a really. I think Jordan Kyrou's played really well. I think the goals aren't there for him yet. I think that's going to come. He's at a 6% shooting percentage right now. I know nobody wants to hear about the stupid, fancy, nerdy numbers. His career norm is at 13%. The regression is coming in a good way for Jordan Kyrou. It is. It's right around the corner. Brandon Saad, I think, has been really good on that line as well. I don't think Brandon Saad's a game breaker, but I think he's been pretty good so far this year. I think your problem on that top line right now is Robert Thomas. I don't think he's played particularly well. I think in the first period, you saw moments where it started to click for him with Jordan Kyrou. I think right now he's playing like a second or third line center. And I think you paid him like he's a top line center. Last year, we talked about this a lot of, okay, if he's not going to be a top line center, what do you do as an organization? We talked about this coming into the season as well, Alex. If he's not a top line center, what do you do? And I think that is one of the fears that we're 5 games in. There's a lot of time. This could change. I think Robert Thomas is a notoriously slow starter. It could get turned around. But if this is the player that he's going to be, I don't know, man. I think you need more out of him.
When I think of past teams, I think of Vladimir Tarasenko. I think of David Perron. Those were guys that were game breakers for the Blues.
Man, we did this with Vladdy, too, though.
We absolutely did.
And we did it with Perron earlier in his career as well.
We absolutely did. But when they got to their best and when they were at their best, they were puck hogs. When they would always demand the puck. And I'm not sure you have a lot of those guys on this team. It seems to be And Berube has labeled it as the team's trying to get too cute out there. Braden Shen has said it on the power play. We're trying to get too cute with some of these plays. It seems that you've got a lot of guys who, when they get into the offensive zone, it's not so much of dump in, go work for the puck and get it back and set something up. It's somebody take a shot so that I could go to the front of the net and try and get a lucky bounce. And to get those shots, you have to shoot the puck. But the problem is you get 3 forwards in there that are passing and passing and passing and passing, thinking, I got to get the wide open shot because if I shoot somebody's leg, it's going to bounce back out the other way. Or if I miss the net, it's going to go rim around the board. I do think that this team is so focused on making sure they don't make mistakes in terms of odd man rushes that they're worried of missing the net that's going to result in odd man rushes.
So what do we attribute that to? Like, obviously all of this is armchair quarterbacking. It's impossible
Honestly,
to know.
I feel
it's
like
probably a combination of a million different things. But what do we attribute that fear, that lack of confidence?
Last season. I think last season is the fear of you witnessed how bad last year was for this Blues team. And as a player, you're thinking, I don't want to go through that again. And to avoid going through that again, you've brought in a new coach that is on the defensive side of the game, that has brought in a new scheme that focuses more on limiting the amount of quality scoring chances from the other team, which in result is going to impact your ability to rush the other way. Sure. And Thomas even said this morning on opening drive, like, we've got to get more. We've got to open the ice more rather than just this closed-in area that we're trying to play in. You've got to open the ice. And right now you're not doing that because last season was so much of, if you don't get the right play, it's going to go the other way, and now we're chasing the game.
See, my fear is they're caught in between.
It feels that way right now.
Is that, and I don't know if this is a coaching situation, if it's a player situation, if it's all of the above. It probably is a little bit of all the above.
I think you're trying to coach the roster you have.
I think they're domed up, man. I think they are in their own heads about, hey, last year we were this, and so we're trying to get better defensively. And they are better defensively. They've kept the shots down, relatively speaking, compared to what they were last year. They're still, giving up a ton of shots. They're just not as good of shots, and that's fine. They're trying to get the odd man rushes going the other direction. I thought last night you saw more of that from the top line specifically. Kyrou didn't convert on his chances, but at least there were chances.
Absolutely.
For him. I think you have seen sometimes they're like almost afraid to make the wrong play. I think you're seeing this on the power play sometimes too, where they're afraid that it's going to go the other direction. And I don't really know how that gets fixed unless they start having consistent opportunities offensively, where you almost need a slump buster where for like a 3-game stretch, you just score 4 or 5 goals in every game. And I don't know that they have the personnel or the talents to do that. And that's my concern is, like, if you don't have the personnel or the talents to be able to get through that slump buster for 3 or 4 games, are you just going to stay kind of inside of your own head where you're stuck in between? And now you've just got a roster and a personality that is just kind of
And see, I think
figure it out, maybe.
I think they've got guys that can do that. The problem is their schedule doesn't allow that anytime soon. Like, we're talking.
The schedule has allowed it against Winnipeg and Arizona. We've been talking about it. They should have been there.
They should have been, but they weren't the slump. Like, if I look, let me pull up what their schedule is.
I don't think it matters who they play.
It doesn't, but, like, you're playing the best of the best early on. Like, not
Calgary, Vancouver. Like, come on, man.
You're playing the middle ground.
This is the game you should be doing it in, but it's not so much the slump busters of taking on, like, the bottom dwellers, that is the San Jose Sharks or teams like that. These are teams that are very similar to you. But beyond these teams, we're talking Colorado, New Jersey, Montreal might be one of those teams, and then you're right back in it with divisional play. Like, you don't play some of these bottom dweller teams until the middle of November, which you got to hope you don't go into that snowball effect again.
If we thought this team was going to be at the top of the middle or hoped that they were going to be top of the middle, then this is the teams that you should be able to do it against. Yeah. At some point, you got to be able to prove it against your peer opponents. We said by the end of the month, we'd have a pretty good idea of who they are. I think we're getting closer to having a good idea of who they are.
This was the team that I wanted to bring up. This was the slump busters that I would look like. Boston. This is what Boston's schedule was: Chicago, Nashville, San Jose, L.A., Anaheim, Chicago. Or 6-0 to start the season.
Yeah, I think some of those teams are very similar to what you faced so far this year. I think one of those Chicago's as good as most of the teams that you faced so far this year.
I would say Chicago's worse than those teams that you faced so far this year.
I don't think
with the exception of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not all that dissimilar from like an Arizona or Winnipeg.
I think the toughest team that Boston went up against to the caliber that you have played is Nashville. Yeah, other than that, you're taking on teams that are projected to be top 5. Well, LA's like Dallas-esque. I'm talking the Seattles, the Arizonas, the Winnipegs, those teams. That's the equivalent of what Boston just did against Nashville. You haven't played the equivalent of San Jose, Anaheim, or Chicago.
And to be fair, Seattle's also been really bad this year, too. And they've been allowing a ton of opportunities going in the other direction. They're 2-4-1 on the season. One of those wins came as a 5-4 overtime winner last night against Detroit. So, I don't know, man. It's a weird start to the season in every possible way. I hope I look back on this conversation 6 months from now and we're like, oh, remember when that team was off to that weird start where they couldn't get anything going offensively? I hope Robert Thomas is right, that they're not worried about the offense and it's going to come for them. I hope that is 100% correct. Because if it does, man, this team could be pretty good. Because the defense is much better than expected, and the goaltending is outstanding. It is world-class goaltending that you're getting right now from Jordan Binnington.
He's got the 5th best goal saved above expected in the NHL.
It's been great, genuinely great. And last night, I thought there was one goal that he would like to have back. It was the first time I've said that all year. For him to be able to say that 4 games into a season, that's amazing. But they've just got so many other issues right now. All right, coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us 2 scenarios, we'll tell you which one's more likely here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one's more likely. T-Bone said he's got a good one, so we'll start with him. T-Bone, what do you got for us?
All right, guys. We've been sounding the red alarm bells so far today.
We haven't.
Right. Me and BK have.
Thank you.
Alex still thinks a cup's coming here.
Nope, never said that.
The cup is coming. The cup is... No, it's not.
No, that's 5 years
Might
from now.
fly overhead when they go out west somewhere.
That's 5 years from now.
More likely to happen. Blues are sellers at the deadline, or they are buying at the deadline?
Sellers.
All right, next question.
I mean, that's an easy one. Like, if you're pushing for a playoff spot, that's not going to make Doug Armstrong keep your players. Now, I think there's certain guys that you can keep. Like, I think in a situation where they're out of the playoffs or they're in like a bottom 10 spot, I could see them also just approaching Kasperi Kapanen and saying, hey, we like the way you play. We wanted you around.
Sure.
But they'll still move on from a Jakub Vrana. They'll move on from a Marco Scandella. And then they got to really decide certain guys that they have in place. In terms of these contracts that people are talking about, you get to the point where if you have another bad year, certain guys on no trade clauses might look at this and say, man, I want an opportunity to win a cup somewhere else.
I don't know.
Could happen.
If you have a bad year, those guys are probably part of why it was a bad year. And
Well, you have to have teams that are interested. But what I'm saying is a guy might be more willing to move on from this team.
Torrey Krug? Can we say the name?
I mean, we're talking about Torrey Krug, Nick Leddy. We're talking about guys with no trade clause. No, you're not moving that man. That man has been incredible.
Parayko's been great.
Yeah, but the name I thought of, like, if we're being...
No, you're not trading him.
But if you're saying, like, move a guy with a no trade clause that says, I want out, it's not Krug. Krug's not playing well enough.
They have approached Parayko, and he said he doesn't want to go anywhere.
I mean, this is the guy we're talking about, though. If it's not looking good, and Parayko says, I want to go win a cup...
But why would you move on from a guy that is only going to help your team moving forward?
Because you're stuck for 4 years, 3 years?
Well, this makes it a longer time frame because now you're searching for another Colton Parayko.
Parayko's not going anywhere.
I agree, but what I'm saying is I don't think the name is Krug that we're talking about here. I don't think the name is Leddy. Why? Because they're not playing well enough to another team would say, yeah, I want them. And he says, yeah, I want out because I want to go win a cup.
I think Leddy's possible. Leddy's after the season,
shorter term deal,
$4 million. I could see the Blues retaining some of that salary. They don't do that very often.
And look, if
maybe you retain some salary, and then he ends up going elsewhere because he's got a modified no trade, right? After this year?
No, it's the start of the 25-26 season, so it's his final year of the deal. Yeah, I know. Those no trade clauses. Good thing you don't give out no movement clauses.
He could be a solid third pairing defenseman.
But it's not even defense. I mean, you could look at your forward group and say, you know what, we might need to move on from some of these guys if they're not in the plans of what we're looking at. I'm thinking Brandon Saad. I'm thinking of Pavel Buchnevich. Like, you could move on from these guys.
Buchnevich is one that immediately comes to mind because he's got 1 year left on his deal after this year, and God, you guys know how much I love Booch. I would resign him. I would try to figure things out around him. But if things go really poorly this year, and he's a 29-year-old player making $5.8 million going into next season, and you can get a massive haul in return, and you should be able to, and you're not going to resign him long-term, then next offseason would be when you decide to trade him. It is the typical thing that teams are doing around the NHL right now, which is trading off your future free agents. It's been an NBA thing for years. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Alex, what do you have for more likely to happen?
More likely to happen. If this offense continues to struggle, the Blues try and make a trade, or the Blues go to the free agent market?
Neither. I think if it...
Well, that's not the answer.
Let me say this.
More likely to happen. Not neither can happen.
I think it's more likely that they make a trade. And I think that the trade that they would make would actually be pulling from within to send somebody elsewhere, and then you pull up Jake Neighbors higher up into the lineup. I'm watching Jakub Vrana closely. I'm a little worried about this, guys.
Yeah, it's a little concerning. But the hard part is, man, the first 3 games, it felt like he was your best player. That was the best line on the ice.
But even then, here's his time on ice by game so far this year. 11, 14, 13, 13, 9.
Yeah, he's a third line player.
And, I mean, if I was going to go through and do the same thing for, like, a Sonny or Toropchenko, I know some of this is the penalty kill versus Vrana, who's not on that unit. I get it, but those guys are playing pretty similar minutes. And if I'm going to have Jakub Vrana as a goal scorer, I need him on the ice more. I know he's a defensive liability, but...
Where are you going to move him, though, to get more ice time? That's my question. Like, who moves out of the top 6 so that he gets more ice time?
Oh, I'm not saying that. I think you just get him out on the ice more often.
But the problem is you got to get... But the problem is you got to get the 2 lines that have been the most consistent on the ice more.
But Kevin Hayes has been really good.
These last 2 games, they've been silent, and that's been the problem. Like, I'm looking at it and thinking, how do I get Jakub Vrana into my top 6?
I would say you drop down Sammy Blais and you bring up Jake Neighbors, and hopefully that line
get that line going. Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
The reason why I bring him up as a potential guy that you would trade is you could trade him out or honestly put him on waivers, unfortunately, and it opens up a little bit of money. You pull up. Maybe then you end up bringing up a guy like Bolduc, and you say, you know what, let's go with the young guy who maybe brings a little bit more offense. I don't know, man, but it is something worth monitoring.
The reason I bring this up, and T-Ben, I want your answer too, but I look at both scenarios here. Free agency, like you're not getting Patrick Kane, so don't even talk about that. But like a Phil Kessel, how long does he sit out there? Does he help your offense at all? Or if you go the trade route, I'm keeping an eye on this Shane Pinto ordeal in Ottawa. He's a centerman. He's 22 years old. Last year he had 23 goals for him. And this is
fit into your lineup, though.
Well, that's the thing. You're making a trade of somebody off of your top 6, top 9 to bring in a player like this because they can't get him signed. They don't have the cap space. You move somebody from your NHL roster. Both are likely scenarios. I would lean more towards the free agency because to make that work, you're talking about sending somebody down to the minors. If they clear waivers, it opens up space, and you bring them in on a league minimum deal.
Yeah, I would think that the truth is we're playing a game more likely to happen, so we got to pick one or the other. I think the truth is they're probably not going to do any of this, and they're just going to bet on this team.
Agreed.
Because they don't have any money.
Yeah, that's why I would think more likely free agency just because you send somebody down and then you free up some space, cap space. But, yeah, I can't see either scenario happening, and I don't think they go to free agency because I think they just want to find out what they have with some of these guys, and they don't want to bring in somebody that's only going to be basically a one-year rental type player.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service tax line from the 314. You guys have no idea what is going on. BK was ready to give an extension to Vrana in the preseason. How about just commenting on what has already actually happened, not what you think? You guys are too stupid to have thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Touche.
First of all, correct. Second of all,
touche.
I thought that Vrana was going to be better than this. I'm more than happy to admit when I end up being wrong, and so far this year I have been very wrong about Jakub Vrana and what his role will be for the St. Louis Blues. No doubt about that. I also didn't foresee them going all in on this style of play. That is something that I didn't project and was wrong on that, and therefore that has a trickle-down effect of everything else that we're watching right now. The style of play that they had a year ago was very open, it was very flimsy defensively, and it allowed for a lot of opportunities offensively. That was what I was taking into account as I was thinking about what the goal production could be for guys like Vrana, Kapanen, Hayes, Thomas, Kyrou, and now all of that has to be taken down like 7 pegs because they're playing such a different style. So that is my reaction to what we've seen so far this year. If you think it's stupid, that's totally fair, but that is my personal opinion on the matter. All right, 314-399.
Stupid. You're stupid.
9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. Guys, more likely to happen. The Blues get to 100 points this season or the Cardinals get to 100 wins next season?
Neither.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we're not playing that game. It's the Cardinals getting to 100 wins. I mean, you're not hitting 100 points. Sorry to get a little emotional here. You're not hitting 100 points.
Because you're now realizing it can't happen.
It's
okay.
You're not getting back to 100 points for at least 3 years. Like this is.
Hey man, it's gonna be all right.
People are people.
You need a hug.
I know, kind of. People are forgetting. Well, ask me that in January. People are forgetting the timeline that Doug Armstrong presented last year, and he said if like the LA Kings retool, and that's a 3-year process. So. The 100 wins, yeah, that was never in consideration. I even said 92 was a sweet spot. It would be hard
to get 100 wins this year for the Blues.
92.
It'd be impressive.
92 was kind of the ideal landing spot, and I'm not sure you're going to get there.
I think they're not.
I thought they were, I said this going into the year, and I still stick by this, an 82 to 85 point team, and that's right around 500, and I thought that's where they would be. So I'm definitely saying more likely the Cardinals win 100 games because with their offense, you add just competent pitching, this team would be at least a 90-win team.
If you add competent pitching.
I would definitely say more likely they win 100.
Talk to me when you actually do it, T-Bone.
Come on, let's sweep it. We all know that. All right, coming up next. This postseason is yet another reminder of how the Cardinals have to get it right when it comes to their pitching, and I'm not just talking about the rotation. We'll get into that, and was this guy the one that got away? No, I'm not referencing Adolis Garcia. And no, I'm not referencing Zach Gallen either. We'll tell you who coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. She truly is the best, making sure that you can save money on your car and home insurance. And Allstate is all about that. Tracy Bibb is always checking in on the rates, making sure that she is at the most competitive rates around the competition. And look, with that, making sure that you're saving some money when it comes to your home and insurance, your home and car insurance, I should say. That's why she truly is the best. Also, she gives you this personal attention that you just don't get from other agents. You know, if there's issues, you're on the side of the road from a fender bender, or you have something wrong with your home, if you're calling and you're hitting on the 800 numbers and you're trying to get somebody to answer and you're going through 8 different people to get to who you need to talk to, that's not the case. Tracy is always available for you to help out with your issue. So give her a call today. She'll walk you through the free non-committal quote. Super simple. She'll even cancel your previous agent for you. 314-328-4260. Just tell Tracy Alex Ferrario sent you. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bib.
Terry Hendricks, your Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues folded the Winnipeg Jets last night 4-2. They'll be back in action on Thursday, when they visit the Calgary Flames. We've got pregame coverage starting at 7 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. And then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 8. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Harper, a high fly ball to center field. Thomas settles under it, and Kevin Ginkel delivers 2 big outs for the Diamondbacks. The Phillies strand 2. And he strikes out Bohm, who snaps his bat in frustration. And did he go? He did. It is a strikeout. Ginkel strikes out the side in the 8th. Wow. Let it out, big fella.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. That's what it sounded like last night on Turner Sports as the Arizona Diamondbacks shut things down. That 7th inning changed the game. That is when they really won it. Now, it took another 6 outs, but realistically, that was the opportunity for the Phillies. The Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen shut them down. And, Alex, that's been a theme for them so far this postseason. If you're looking at their big 3, it's Ryan Thompson, Kevin Ginkel, who, God, he was awesome last night, and Paul Sewald, who they traded for, by the way, at the deadline. A big move by the Seattle Mariners that ended up paying off in a big way, actually, for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Those 3 guys have pitched a combined 27 2/3 inning this postseason. They have given up a total of 3 earned runs. All of them have been given up by Ryan Thompson. Ginkel and Sewald have pitched 17 innings, have allowed 0 earned runs and just 9 hits. Alex, as we look to the offseason for the Cardinals, we've talked so much about their rotation, as we should. They need to add 3 new starters. They need to add 2 guys at a minimum that are slotting in front of Miles Mikolas, in our opinion. Let's not forget about the bullpen, though, because you also need to improve that group. I don't know that going into next year, I trust Giovanni Gallegos to be an every night option in the 8th inning. I would prefer to have that guy as somebody that is in the 7th inning. I think I view him as more of the Miguel Castro of the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen or the Craig Kimbrell of the Phillies bullpen. You hope that it works out, but you can't count on it. You need at least 3 other dudes that you can count on night to night, and that requires this team to go out there and sign, I think, 2 guys that factor into the 7th or 8th inning plans for this upcoming season.
Yeah, you, to me, have too many squint guys in your bullpen. And what I mean by that is you have to squint to see them fit into that role. Helsley's that guy. Gallegos is that guy. Jojo Romero is that guy. All guys that I feel confident with in the regular season, but postseason, I'm not sure I feel comfortable in that spot. Now, to the point of getting 2 of them, I think you're aggressive to get that one elite guy this offseason and then try and make the trade at the deadline, because there's so many other areas that you've got to spend money on this offseason in terms of the 1 and 2 starting pitcher, probably some depth on the starting pitcher side. You can make it through a regular season where you sign or trade for that top guy in the bullpen and then back it up with Helsley and Gallegos and Jojo Romero and a couple of other depth pieces. And then once you get to the trade deadline, that's where you get to be ultra aggressive and bring in that second dude.
So I should probably clarify this. I'm not talking about the top of the market. Like, if you go out and get 2 instead of getting somebody like Josh Hader or maybe even going out and having a reunion with somebody like what you already had in Jordan Hicks, I'm talking about like Phil Maton, or going out and talking to somebody like Emilio Pagan, or maybe Adam Ottavino if he wants to continue pitching. Joe Jimenez.
There's a reunion.
These are guys that are like $5 million relievers, $5 to $6 million bucks. Yeah. Really effective players, and you can get multiple of them on a 1 to 2 year deal, $5 million bucks a piece. That's the kind of level that I'm talking about if you go this route. Like, Phil Maton for the Houston Astros has been a huge part of that bullpen. And over the last 2 seasons as a 3.5 ERA, he's appeared in 135 games. That is somebody that I could take into next season. He's got a really good strikeout rate, more than a batter per inning in terms of the strikeouts. That's a guy that I could really trust in this bullpen at the back end. And I think I would trust that as much, if not more, than Gio. And it allows me to play a little bit more with the matchup. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, less so than going out and spending, 25, 30 million bucks on one of these relievers.
That's where I am too. Is that you've got to find a way to win on some of those smaller deals. Pierce Johnson, Emilio Pagan, as you mentioned, Phil Maton. Those are the kind of guys that need to be built into this bullpen, because I do think they need to add 2 guys this year. And then if they need another one, go get him at the bullpen. Or hell, if you go into the trade deadline next year and you go, what do we add? The answer should be a bullpen arm. It always should probably be a bullpen arm, because you can never have too many of those. And I think this team, I think you're right, Alex, when you say you have to squint to see it. I don't trust Gio going into next year. I don't trust JoJo, not so much based performance-wise. Just this was the first year we really saw him break out. I still trust Helsley because I think his struggles early on and in the playoffs last year were injury-related. So I trust Helsley still. But you got to find those 2 guys that are behind him in that 7th and 8th inning. Gio and JoJo, those are kind of that 6th inning mix and match bridge guy for you. You need to get 2 high leverage arms this year that go into the circle of trust when we start the season next year.
So the other thing that I was watching last night with the Diamondbacks, they might have the guy on their team that got away from the Cardinals. I'm not talking about Tommy Pham. I'm not talking about Zach Gallen.
Jesus, there's a lot of them.
they're never in.
Keep going, because there's
not
more.
Adolis Garcia, not Jordan Montgomery,
Mike Maddox.
Yeah, none of those guys. I'm not mentioning any of those players.
Marte. That's the one that I miss.
Talking about their catcher, I've been really impressed by Gabriel Moreno so far in this postseason. This kid is 23 years old. He's batting .295 in the playoffs for the Arizona Diamondbacks in this NLCS. Overall in the postseason, he's batting .280. Now, he doesn't have a ton of pop. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and hit, 25, 30 home runs for you, but he's got a little bit of it, and he just seems to make all the right plays at all the right times. Like, when they needed to move a runner over, he's a guy that can do that. When they needed to just drive the ball to the gap, he's a guy that can do that as well. He made all the little plays, and he's really good defensively, and he seems to be a pretty good game caller as well. I really like Gabriel Moreno a lot. The reason why I find him to be the one that got away, Alex, we talked a lot last offseason about the catching options for the Cardinals. We brought up, of course, the top catching option on the free agent market. That was Wilson Contreras. The top trade option on the market. That was Sean Murphy. We also brought up the Toronto Blue Jays catchers, and we focused specifically on the 2 veterans that they had. What we didn't talk enough about, because we thought they wouldn't make him available, is Gabriel Moreno. He was one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball, the top catching prospect in the sport. He's going to be 23 years old. He's got like 6 years of club control. No way they let that guy walk. They're going to get, Alejandro Kirk, or what's the other guy, the goggles?
Danny Jansen.
Danny Jansen. One of those guys are probably the ones that they're going to trade, right? And we heard, hey, the Cardinals might have even had talks about Danny Jansen, potentially, maybe even for Ryan Helsley. That was a rumor that floated around last offseason. Well, it ended up being the one that they traded was Gabriel Moreno. Alex, looking back on it, I don't know that this was ever an option for the Cardinals. But if they had waited and the Blue Jays called up, because it ended up being that the Diamondbacks traded Dalton Varsho, a left-handed outfielder who's got a little bit of pop in him, but never really has lived up to some of the expectations that were placed upon him. And he was a really underwhelming player this year for the Toronto Blue Jays. If they had called you up and said, hey, we will trade you Gabriel Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel Jr., by the way, who was a expiring deal outfielder, pretty solid out there. We'll trade you them for Lars Nootbaar. If you revisit
here we go again.
History, you go back and you're able to do that prior to making the deal with Wilson Contreras. Would you have done that?
Hell yeah. If you're telling me I'm getting both, like if I'm getting Gurriel and Moreno, hell yeah, I'm pulling that deal off. Like if it was just Moreno for Nootbaar, I'd seriously consider it because I need that help. But your outfield is in a really tough spot. Like retrospect looking or hindsight looking back on it, like you'd be even a worse spot if you traded him just for a catcher because O'Neill was never available, Carlson was never available. You'd be scrapping to find something there. But if you're going to give me an outfielder who's 29 years old, who has been good in his career.
It was only a 1-year deal, so you were going to be an expiring, but you figured that out this offseason.
But it bridged the gap. Yep. And I knew that I was getting good offense and defense from him, and I was getting the part for Moreno that when we talked about him in the offseason was it was just such a small sample size. Like you had 25 games. Yeah, he was good, but it's 25 games. Like, do we know that this guy can take over for a full-time load? Well, now we've just figured it out. So, yeah, hindsight's 20/20, but I would have pulled that deal off immediately.
I think I would have done it too, because when you look at what the future of the outfield looks like for the St. Louis Cardinals, you would probably extend Gurriel. I would think you'd probably lock him up after this season. I think Arizona's going to have to explore that this year because he had a really good year. And you end up with the catcher of the future that you would probably trust defensively. His framing's not that great, but his blocking and his pop time are one of the best in Major League Baseball. So I think the Cardinals, in hindsight, would probably do this. I know they'd be giving up a lot in Nootbaar, but you get the 1-for-1 replacement for Gurriel, and you go, okay, can we get away with having one less on-base guy? And you have Donovan be that guy, forgetting that he had the injury. I think they probably would have done it. I really do. I think they would have done it because we saw how much they missed a defensive-minded catcher, and Contreras just isn't that. And Moreno is more of that than Contreras, for sure.
I don't know that they would have done it because of how high they are on Lars Nootbaar. I think looking back, if you could go back and know then what you know now, I think then they would have. Does that make sense? Like in the moment, if they were offered Gabriel Moreno for Lars Nootbaar, I think they probably would have said, no, we're not doing that. Today, I think they would have done that. Because now you know, okay, we probably would like a do-over with that contract. The other thing that it allows you is flexibility. So if you've got Gabriel Moreno at catcher and you're not paying $18 million this offseason to Wilson Contreras because he got a bump in his salary for the 2024 season compared to what he was signed for this year, now you've got even more money to spend. So now, like, I don't think they would have done it, but maybe going into this offseason, we could be talking about like Yamamoto and Blake Snell at the front end of your rotation. Something like that becomes more possible. Or maybe instead of going out and getting Nola, Sonny Gray, and two of those lesser bullpen arms that we're talking about, maybe then you go Nola, Gray, and you end up adding Josh Hader to the back end of your bullpen. You know, it just allows for a lot more flexibility going into this upcoming year. So I think now you'd probably make that deal. At the time, though, I do understand where they were coming from because of what Alex said. It is such an unknown with Gabriel Moreno. And they wanted a known commodity because they thought they were in their win-now mode. And so they went out and they got the guy that is the best hitting catcher in baseball over the last few years. and they were hoping that they could help him defensively. Well, now looking back, probably one of the other route. If there is something to learn from this, though, on the pitching side of things, I do think you can use this as a lesson for that third pitcher that you're acquiring. Instead of going out and trading for or signing a known commodity as that third guy, maybe you go trade for the guy that you think is the next top 3 level starter in your rotation. This is where you get your Brian Wu, your Edward Cabrera. You're like, hey, we're betting on this guy. We haven't seen it a lot, but if it hits in the way that we think it can, he can be for our rotation what Gabriel Moreno was for the Diamondbacks in terms of what their lineup was able to do this year. A lot of people are bringing up Ivan Herrera. It's another guy that kind of fits into this mix as a conversation point, but the problem is now that you have Wilson Contreras, I just don't know what the role is long-term for Ivan Herrera here. You've got 4 more years of this with Wilson Contreras.
You should use him like Toronto did, where they said, what do we need? We need a defensive outfielder.
Yeah.
And they said, how are we going to get it? We're going to trade away a catching prospect that's blocked, in our opinion. We, at the time, they thought Danny Jansen and Alejandro Kirk were better options for them. And I think it's fair to say that the Cardinals, Contreras more so contract related than anything, contract and then Kisner are 2 guys that are solidified. Contreras is a starter. Kisner can be a starting caliber catcher, but fits really well as a backup. Use Herrera and trade him. Don't let him just sit in the minor leagues and go, oh, we got catching depth. Well, see if you can use him and flip him and get something that you need, like a pitcher, like a Brian Wu or a Kerber from Miami.
That's the way to do it. It's going to require some gumption.
All right, we fixed the team.
And there's going to be some difficult moments where you feel uncomfortable with the decisions that you have to make, but I'm much more likely to make that move than I am one that's going to take Nolan Gorman off of this team, for example. I'm willing to trade from the future. I just don't want to trade from the present. Coming up next, let's dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. All right, let's dive into the juncture, Alex. I've got some questions for you. I need some parenting advice.
Well, I'm the guy to come to.
I'm here for you.
Okay.
How in God's name did you get through sleep regression? Because boy,
coffee.
howdy, is it hitting us hard.
A lot of coffee.
My God.
A lot of coffee.
Luca has decided every 2 hours, I'm ready to get up and we're going to eat again. Now, what you don't understand about this, T-Bone, yet, one day, is that
Maybe.
every 2 hours is one thing. That doesn't sound so bad. You're like, okay, yeah, you're getting up every 2. Yeah,
like
you
a perfect
forget
cat nap.
that when he gets up, you then have to do the feed, which, takes 10 minutes probably. And then you have to wait for him to fall all the way back asleep to put him back in the bassinet.
More than likely change the diaper, too, at some point.
So at this point, we're 30 minutes in. So cool, yeah, we've gone 30 minutes. And then we've got like an hour and a half before we're starting the process back up again. It feels like it never ends. The dude used to drink like 2 ounces at a time, typically. He's at like 4 or 5 at times now.
Oh, yeah.
This is insanity.
Yeah, honestly, I walked my way through a lot of that.
Sure.
Like, you wake up and you do it, and, like, most of the time you're, like,
I
half
went to the
asleep.
bathroom last night. Don't remember doing it.
Yeah, I missed the floor a lot. That's when I just really started to sit down when I went because of that problem. But, yeah, you just... it's weird because I don't remember the first, like, 2 to 3 months of both of my girls. Like, obviously I remember it, but, like, I don't remember being exhausted.
It's all just blurred together.
Yeah, because you're so tired. It was to the point where, like, because, again, like, Katie would breastfeed, but she would pump because I wanted to be a part of the feeding. So she would wake up to pump, and I would feed,
Sure.
and we both would be awake. Yeah.
She'll do one, I'll do the next.
And honestly, that was probably what helped me is I just forced myself to get up every time, even when I wasn't doing it, because then I got to the point where it was just like, all right, yep, every 2 to 3 hours. It's tough, man. You're just, you push through.
Somebody said, BK, try triplets. That's what I'm going through right now. God bless you.
Oh, my gosh.
God bless you. I don't know how anybody does it. Seriously, it's amazing to me. I've gained so much respect. Not that I didn't have respect previously for parents, but holy bleep. It adds a completely different dimension to your life.
That's why we wanted the second one so close, because like I told her we wanted them close because we wanted them to be close in age, but I said, like, I'm not getting out of the baby stage. Like, I want to have the next one when I'm in this baby stage, because the moment we get out of diapers, the moment I stop formula, I'm not going to want to go back into it. So it's like, let's do this all in the same time frame so I could get all the exhaustion out when I can handle it and then move forward.
Somebody on the text line said, BK, I'm dealing with a 2-month-old right now. I feel your pain. Hey, man, at 2 months, we were good. I'm not telling you this to scare you.
BK was walking around the office like, he's sleeping. I've got this made. This is great, guys. Alex, you told me this was bad.
At 2 months, we were like, man, this is going really well. And we didn't want to say it out loud. We got to the 13 and a half week period, and that's right around the sleep regression part. He started teething. We got that going a little bit right now. And now he's into the full-blown sleep regression / growth spurt.
Not to be...
He's still a great kid. Like, he's not typically very fussy. Like, we don't have to deal with any of that. It's just waking up.
Yeah. Look, I hate the parents that do this, and we joked with Justin Falk about this, and he's like, don't take people's advice. I'll say this, that we had a book, Moms on Call, that we kind of used as religious, and God bless that book, because we got just in a routine with these kids that was like, you put them to sleep, they take their bottle, and then they're out. And I think by the third or fourth month, man, we were absolutely blessed, because both of our girls kind of, when they got through that sleep regression, they slept through the night, and we've had no issue since.
Somebody on the text line said, BK, instead of alternating with your wife, why don't you guys take shifts? One of you does the first half of the night, the other takes the second half, then both of you are guaranteed a few hours of sleep. That's what we had been doing previously. Unfortunately, because these are so consistent, it's tough.
Well, and here's the other thing, too.
We both are working.
You can say you want to do that, but as soon as you hear that baby cry, you wake up, too. It's not like you sleep through that. Like, I'm a heavy sleeper. As soon as I heard one of our daughters cry, my wife get up, I'm like, all right, well, I got to get up. I can't make her do all of this herself.
Somebody's saying use a sound machine. It changed.
White noise machine.
Yeah, we've been using that.
Do you do the bath before bedtime?
So we have the whole routine, right? Everybody's got a little different routine on terms of what they do. We do baths on Sundays, and now we're going to implement them because he's getting a little bit older on Thursdays as well. Yeah. So we're doing it a couple of days a week. He's got his medicine that he takes before bed as well. So we've got that. We do a bottle before. We've got the whole routine ready to go. And he goes down pretty well. It's not an issue of him
just more
getting
food
to sleep. Mm-hmm. It's an issue of waking up because it's sleep regression. Like there's nothing you can do
He's
about it.
growing
Hey,
and he needs more food.
If you guys have kids, you've been through it as well. I know it's going to end, but how long?
You get there. You get there, man. You get there. Here's the thing. The best part about it is in about a month, you'll be laughing about, remember when that was bad? And then in about like 6 months, you get towards the age where they're walking and you're like, son of a nutcracker, I wish he was just still crawling.
Is that you right now?
Yeah. Well, no. Now both of mine are walking, and it is just absolute terror. The other day, my daughter picked up the dog food bowl and dumped it all out on the floor and watched me.
Good.
She's like, yeah, watch this, Daddy.
Do you remember how old yours were when they started crawling?
Yeah, Adelaide was probably about 6 months, and Emma was a lot faster. Emma was like at 4 months.
I think we're getting there.
You'll start to know because they sit up on all fours and they do like the little back up.
Yep.
And they're like thrusting their body backwards, and then they start like moving one foot at a time.
So he's getting the leg, almost like the rollover kind of thing going, like the hip movements. Yep. And it's like, oh, okay, so we've got the full flip back and forth ready to go now. And now we're working on I think to get that toy, I'm going to go like this. Now we're going to.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah. You're like in purgatory right now. Hell will be when he starts moving.
Coming up next, I think Mizzou is experiencing something that we're going to call the Luther Burden effect, Alex. And we're not just talking about on the field, off the field as well. What's it mean? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you talking about the famous frozen custard here in St. Louis, Ted Drew's. The destination just off of Chippewa has been around since 1929, and families among families have been building that family tradition, going out to Ted Drew's on a Friday night, sitting there outside on the trunk of their car, eating that famous frozen custard. I want to do that with my girls, doing it with my girls, and I'm sure you've already started that tradition as well. If you haven't, get out there and begin, because, man, they've got so many different flavors you can ask for. They've already got specialty flavors in place. You want to celebrate City SC being the best in the West? Well, go check them out. The Ted's Delicious Vanilla Custard blended with maraschino cherries, coconut flakes, Dad's Scotch Oatmeal Cookie, served as a concrete or a sundae. And while you're out there, walk across the parking lot and check out the new Ted Drew's gift shop. That's got all of the apparel you could ask for, kids and adults. They've got hats, drinkware, gift cards, which is a perfect gift to get that special someone. And frankly, while you're at Ted Drew's, you can buy some in a quart and take it home with you, freeze it, and have it for the holidays. Go check them out just off of Chippewa. It's Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. I call this BK Reads the Internet. This comes from Rivals.com. A gentleman by the name of Clint Cosgrove works for Rivals. He's covered the area. His dad was a coach in the area. He now covers recruiting for Rivals.com. He writes, Missouri and St. Louis have always been up for grabs on the recruiting trail. Gary Pinkel had some success in the area with keeping a handful of the elite talent at home, but no coach has really come close to building a border around the state. I live in Illinois. The top talent is always going to leave that state. That's just a given. But Missouri and St. Louis specifically, it's a tight-knit community. There are too many future stars. Staying home was not the answer. They felt that success elsewhere was the best way to attain a career in football. Luther Burden has changed that. The Luther Burden effect is very real. He then continues, Ryan Wingo, a 5-star wide receiver in the area, has a decision to make on Wednesday. It could impact Mizzou football for years to come. Missouri landed a commitment already from in-state 5-star Williams Nwaneri. The Tigers have Burden pushing for a Heisman campaign this year. Should they land Wingo, the Luther Burden effect will officially come to fruition. In fact, a commitment from Wingo could cause a tsunami that changes college rosters across the country, end quote.
Can we spend more time on the fact that Illinois can't keep their own talent?
Illinois, where I live, the top talent is always going to leave the state.
We didn't have to reread the line.
Yeah, we did. One more time for those in the back.
Illinois, where I live, has top talent, and it's always going to leave the state. That is a given. I love that. That is a given part of it.
Coming up next.
The reason why I bring this up, Alex, is because I totally agree with his assessment of the situation.
Yeah.
I said this, I think it was last week. Brad Smith was the reason that Mizzou football was relevant in the 2000s. Without his success early on in the Gary Pinkel era, nothing that followed would be possible. Brad Smith saved Gary Pinkel's job. Brad Smith made it cool to go to Missouri again. Brad Smith made Missouri relevant enough for Chase Daniel to want to come home, or for Chase Daniel to want to come here from Texas, frankly. He made it cool enough for Jeremy Maclin to decide, you know what, I want to go there. All of that happened because of Brad Smith. None of the rest was possible. I think Luther Burden is this era's version of doing that. Mizzou had no longer become cool. Mizzou had lost the luster of the 2013, 2014 success. They had a brief one-off in 2018 where they had a really good start to the season. There was some success on the recruiting trail that followed, but it really never sustained. A lot of stuff from 2015 to 2018 went south. We don't have to rehash everything, but Missouri was no longer cool for kids in the state of Missouri. Luther Burden going there changed that. The success that he's having there now, the team's on-field products that's taking place right now, now you're getting the attention of the top players in the state again. It's NIL. It's the success on the field. It's the new law for NIL that has made it even more likely that kids are staying home. All of this combined is allowing for Missouri to compete on a national stage in a way that, frankly, it never has before. Alex, I don't know how long this is going to last. Recruiting and specifically the rules are changing, it seems like, every year. So it's possible the recruiting advantages that Missouri has now in state will no longer exist as soon as 2 or 3 years from now. But while they do, take advantage, man. And you're doing it with Williams Nwaneri. You did it with Luther Burden. It sounds like you're likely to do it with Ryan Wingo. This could change what the next 3 to 5 years looks like for Mizzou football.
Yeah, you have to capitalize on this because, like you mentioned, as much as this is the Luther Burden effect, because, look, Luther Burden, yes, the NIL's tied into it, but if you don't get Luther Burden and you don't win, that's the other thing. You could get Luther Burden and have a season like last year, and players are like, do I really want to go here? But you tie into the NIL money. That's where things really significantly change, and you're adding the success onto the roster right now. But like you just mentioned, you've got I don't know, what would you say, a 3 to 5 year window to capitalize on this before the NIL changes. And this is where you bring in as many of these commits as possible and recruits as possible so that you load up so that for a 3 to 5 year span before this changes and you kind of dip back down, capitalize on being one of the top teams in the SEC East, because then when the NIL thing shifts, you still have that Luther Burden effect of the offense and the success that these teams are having where players look at Mizzou and say, yeah, but they win, and that's going to be my best path to get to the NFL.
From the 314, BK, you do realize that these commitments mean nothing until National Signing Day, right? They mean something. If you commit to Missouri, that's better than them not committing to Missouri right now. The other thing is they're getting paid, man. If the moment that they sign some kind of a financial aid agreement, it's nothing that's binding because they can't sign the NLI just yet, the National Letter of Intent yet. NLI, NIL, very different things. They end up mattering a lot together. But once he signs something that says, I'm going to commit to the University of Missouri, he's allowed now to be paid by all of the NIL stuff that he's going to be getting in terms of the packages from Mizzou. So they do matter a little bit because if you end up taking that money, you may have to give it back if you don't end up at the University of Missouri. So it matters. Maybe not 100%, but it does end up mattering a little bit.
Yeah, and I think to Alex's point of you probably got a 3 to 5 year window here. You can't have a dud of a year. You just cannot because you're going to be able to. You should be able to recruit with the NIL rules that are now available to the University of Missouri, and you're able to keep in your home talent. Now it's just upon building upon that because it's one thing to recruit, and this was my biggest criticism of Drink coming into the year is it is one thing to recruit, it's another thing to win with those recruits. And right now he's doing both, and that is the biggest thing is can you continue to recruit? Yeah, and what is the biggest push to recruiting? There is NIL now involved, but it's winning. Kids want to go play for winners. They don't want to be just sitting at the bottom of the SEC and getting shellacked every weekend when they play games. 100%. No, they want to be what Mizzou is right now, which is contending for a chance to be able to go down to Atlanta, Georgia, and go play for an SEC championship.
By the way, that last line in his story where he says...
This better not be ripping on Illinois.
Will you read the Illinois one again to me, please?
Like Illinois, where I live, top talent is always going to leave the state. That's just a given.
We gotta fix this.
A commitment from Wingo could cause a tsunami that changes college rosters across the nation. There has been a little bit of buzz, kind of murmuring under the surface right now. There are some kids from the St. Louis area that are very interested in maybe coming back home. Maybe a little interested.
Are there any Illinois kids that are interested in coming back home?
Maybe a little interested in coming back home. Maybe some kids from Bama. Maybe some kids from
Georgia, the
Notre
one that
Dame.
left.
Dominic Lovett comes back again.
He's already transferred. His one free transfer's gone. If Missouri continues to have success this year, the roster could look a little different again next season. And I'm not just talking about with the recruiting wins that they're getting right now from high school kids. You could end up seeing some kids that previously were like, I need to go elsewhere to have success in college to compete, to contend at a place like Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame. Some of those kids may now be looking at it and saying to themselves, hey, I'm on the 2 deep, 3 deep here. I'm not going to start next year. Would I rather go to Missouri where I might be able to contend right now and be a contributing member for my home state school on a contending team? That's the kind of thing that a season like this could change. And it's why getting Ryan Wingo matters. It's why getting Williams Nwaneri mattered. It's why getting Luther Burden was huge. It completely changed the landscape of the future of Missouri football. And if you're able to beat Georgia, dude, if you can just win that game, whoo, buddy, now we're really cooking with some gas.
That's where the tsunami really comes in.
Oh, yeah, that's where
because not only do you get a win potentially if Wingo commits today of, hey, look, we kept another 5-star in-state recruit, then you beat Georgia without even him.
Everybody wants him.
There's the true tsunami.
Because you've become the cream of the crop in the SEC East. Like when you take down Georgia, and look, I understand it's one game and Georgia's still going to be successful just like Alabama, but you've put yourself in the conversation with those 3 teams. You've spread yourself, you've distanced yourself away from all of those other middle-tier teams in the SEC East. It comes down to that and getting these commits.
It was always a matter of can you keep these kids home? Missouri football and Missouri basketball, they have a unique opportunity to pull from 2 huge metropolitan areas that do have real football and basketball talent in Kansas City and in St. Louis. And now you've got some prep schools around the area for basketball that are starting to produce some significant talent as well. If you can keep those kids home, you can contend. But it was always so incredibly difficult to convince those kids, hey, it is in your best interest to stay here. Because how can you say that when I could go to Ohio State and end up winning a national championship and getting drafted into the first round? Kind of hard to tell Ezekiel Elliott or Jamison Williams, some of these kids, like, hey, you should come here over going to Bama or Alabama or Georgia. How do you do it? Now you've got a little bit of an incentive, both in terms of the money and now the winning as well. You add that together, got some stuff that's starting to build at the University of Missouri. All right, by the way, I do want to give a lot of credit to Desiree Reed-Francois. We've given a lot of credit to Eli Drinkwitz, to Dennis Gates. Desiree Reed-Francois, 1, is in place to keep those guys there, and 2 is in place to make sure that the money is available, which is a big piece of all of what we're talking about right now. Coming up next, speaking of the money available, do the Brewers have any of it? Maybe not for the roster, definitely not for the manager. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK, and I've got some exciting news for all the men out there. Victory Men's Health has launched a new telehealth site. It's called Victory RX. Men, you can go there. You'll get prescribed the ED medication that you've been looking for. You've probably tried a dozen different things. Maybe they didn't work. Maybe it was affected by the food or the drink that you had. The dosage wasn't right. You had to take a couple of pills. Not with VictoryRx.com. They've made this process so easy. You go to the site, you do your entire consult all via text, and this is a trusted brand. Victory Men's Health has already treated thousands of men in their standalone locations, and now they're giving you easier access to their #1 selling ED medication. It's going to come in the form of a chewable tablet. It has active ingredients with both Viagra and Cialis, so it's going to make sure that it has the correct dosage for you the first time around. The fact that it's a chewable tablet, by the way, means that it's not going to be affected at all by the food or the drink that you had earlier in the day. So go to VictoryRx.com. That's VictoryRx.com, and you'll play hard. We might have seen the last of Craig Counsell in a Brewers uniform. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, will join us here in just a little bit. But, Alex, it was reported this morning the Mets have received permission to interview Craig Counsell for their manager job. The Brewers had initially indicated that they would not grant this permission. Counsell's contract was going to have to expire, which is going to happen within the next month or so. They have now changed course. The Mets are planning to interview him for that position. Now, this report also added that it is expected that Counsell will explore other opportunities, including staying with the Brewers. The Mets are also going to interview other candidates. This is not a done deal. It feels like one of those things where there's probably a rule within the Major League Baseball guidelines where they're required to interview multiple people. I think this is going to happen. If I had to guess, I would guess Craig Counsell probably going to be the next manager for the New York Mets. If it does, Alex, if we go down that path, what does this mean for the Brewers?
Start it with me, T-Bone. Blow it up, blow it up, blow it up. How do you act like you lose, in my opinion, the key component of that team being successful over the last few seasons? You lose that and sit here and act like, yeah, we could stay competitive. Now, you still have Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff, although he's not playing next year. And you've got a great bullpen that includes Devin Williams. But you only got, one more year of Corbin Burns, one more year of Brandon Woodruff, and then you're going to have to really pay them. And other than that, like, we're talking about under contract next year with the exception of arbitration, Christian Yelich, Wade Miley, Freddie Peralta. Now, you've got some good, talented young players in your system. Yeah, woohoo! Sounds like the Cardinals going into this upcoming season. Like, you've got talented young prospects that are top players. You've got pieces in place. I don't know. I look at the Milwaukee Brewers and say, if I'm them, I seriously consider starting this rebuild because I can get a haul for Corbin Burns. I can probably get significant pieces back and maybe a couple of guys in my bullpen. And let's start from scratch. Let's build on to these younger players that I've got, because without Craig Counsell, this team doesn't have an identity.
Yeah, I'm curious to know if they're going to go rebuild route or retool route. And the difference for me would be, like, instead of trading Burns for prospects, you look for guys that are like fringe major leaguers, like they're looking for the guy we talked about earlier, the Montero, the catcher for the Diamondbacks. Moreno, sorry. Montero, I was thinking of the guy in like the early 2010s. But I wonder if that's something they'll try to do, is they trade some of their pieces that are, hey, we can get something for them, but they kind of make it a retool rather than a rebuild. But yeah, I think this tells you all you need to know. I think it's twofold. I think, one, Counsell wanted to be one of the highest paid managers in baseball, as he probably should be. I think he's one of the best in Major League Baseball. And the Brewers said, whoa, we don't spend money on talent, let alone a manager. And then, two, I think he got the idea of it's going to be a rebuild or a retool, and he doesn't want to go through it, and nor should he, considering how good he is as a manager. So what's he going to do? He's going to interview with the Mets job. I think you're right. I think he probably takes it. But I am fascinated to know what Milwaukee does, because there will be a ton of pieces that they have that people will be interested in. Burns is going to be one of them. Devin Williams will be another. They will probably explore moving both of those guys. So I'm fascinated to know what their offseason looks like, because I don't think they're going to be a team that is going to be contending for the NL Central next year, per se.
The surprise is not that Milwaukee is having to do this. The surprise is that they kept it together as long as they did.
Yeah.
7 straight years in terms of the full seasons, take away the pandemic season in 2020, weird year. 7 straight years of 86-plus wins. That is really hard to accomplish in a market like Milwaukee, man. In fact, it's nearly impossible. Like, Milwaukee and Tampa are 2 of the only places that have been able to have this kind of sustained success at that level of a market. And they're doing it with a payroll that's hovering around, what, $120, $130 million? It's not like they're out there spending a ton of money year to year. They've got Christian Yelich, who signed long-term, but otherwise, man, you've got Corbin Burns on the final year of his deal. Willie Adames, final year of his deal. Brandon Woodruff, final year of his deal. You are running out of runway. These are the guys that have made this recent run possible for you. I think it's time to get out from underneath some of those contracts. It's time to start the retool. I don't think this is going to be a rebuild. I don't think they're going to be terrible for like a 7-year stretch the way that Pittsburgh has, the way that we've seen at times from Cincinnati in the past. I think it'll be relatively quick, kind of similar to what the Chicago Cubs have done recently, where it was like 2 or 3 years of not being great. But it is going to be hard, because this is a fan base that has become accustomed to winning. And without Craig Counsell there, without David Stearns in that chair anymore as the president of baseball operations, I know it's been a year, but only a year. We haven't seen yet what it looks like with Arnold as the primary guy making big-time decisions. I think you're about to see them go through a bit of a retool.
See, I feel like it might be longer than that because Milwaukee has just historically been a team that's not been willing to pay a lot of money for talent.
They have been making some big moves, though. Like, they had CC Sabathia that they brought in at the deadline. They ended up trading for Yelich and then kept him long-term. Like, they're willing to spend on a couple of guys. I mean, they've got right now under contract Woodruff and Burns making big-time money next year.
They scream like Cardinals, though, in terms of, like, they're willing to spend money on, like, two or three guys, and then the rest is just, well, we internally will figure it out.
But that's the case for most teams, man. I'd say there's like 12 teams that actually spend big on a bunch of different players. They're kind of like Arizona or like those other mid-tier markets where, yeah, you're going to spend on a few different guys, but there is a legitimate budget that's in place where, hey, you can't go over this, and if you try to, like, we're going to have to move some of these other guys around.
It seems like they're spending it on the wrong guys, and like now
the Brewers?
I'm like in the past, like you've gotten the right guys with Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff, like those guys, but now you've allocated all of this money to Christian Yelich as that top dog.
That's unfortunate, though. He had a back injury. And I don't think there's anything that you can do about that. Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work. But I didn't mind that contract for them. I thought it was a pretty good one, honestly. They, like you said, he just won MVP. And this year, by the way, Christian Yelich was good. He wasn't great, but he was pretty darn good. 25% above league average. He kind of got back to being a really solid player again. The problem is he can't be the best player on your team for a championship contender.
And the issue they ran into is they just didn't develop anything else offensively. I mean, everybody else on that lineup, like they had to trade for Adames, and Adames had like an okay year, but he's like an average piece, and he's hitting fourth for him. Tellez is hitting like cleanup for him. Santana they had to trade for and hit cleanup for him. The problem is they kind of fell into that pendulum swing where they had all this pitching, but they could never develop that bat to equal out a good team. They just never had that.
I've got some breaking news for you.
Oh, is Craig Counsell going to be the manager?
Mike Schilt, the manager of the Padres?
No, it is Cardinals related, though.
Oh, Yadier Molina, bench coach. Congratulations.
Cardinals just made a move.
Who'd we claim off of waivers?
Who'd we sign to a contract extension?
Did they DFA James Nail again?
Oh, God.
They added another infielder, boys.
And, of course, look at the picture that they used.
Oh, I haven't even seen this. Who is it? I want to know.
Hold on. This is the prototypical Cardinals move. The player that they have acquired, the picture that they used is from the team that is in the World Series currently 100%. That did not play last season for that team.
Correct.
Way to go, Cardinals.
He played for him this year. He's going to get a World Series ring, in fact.
Oh, so World Series champion coming to the Cardinals.
Buddy Kennedy.
What the hell's the point of this move?
Oh, our 40-man roster is now at 40. Now you're not going to be able to make any moves.
Former fifth-round draft pick this year in the minors. Had an OPS of 900 in the PCL. He then was moved to Oakland, where he didn't play quite as well. But when he was in the Arizona Diamondbacks organization, my dude had a 318 batting average and slugged 485. Put together a really nice season.
Hold on. Did he even play in Oakland?
No.
In the minors. He didn't even make it to the
11
Oakland
days in their minor leagues.
Can I tinfoil real quick?
Trading somebody?
I think they make this move if they're looking to move a Sajaci. Or who was the other one they got at the deadline this past year? Prito. I wonder if this is hey, Sajaci and Prito were depth pieces for us, but we may need to move them to go get a pitcher.
Maybe it's just whatever. Like
I think it's getting the 40-man roster.
You don't think that they're playing chess while we're playing checkers?
No. I think it's a really smart move. Like
I think it's a smart move.
This guy could absolutely help you next year in AAA as a depth piece.
I think they're
playing. He's not somebody that's going to make any sort of like meaningful difference to your team. I don't think.
I think you could find that guy on a minor league deal that doesn't block a 40-man spot.
This is their Adolis Garcia. They got him. They got him.
I think they're playing checkers, and Michael Gersh is like, "Whoa, we're playing Monopoly. They're not even playing the right game right now."
Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, next.
Terry Hendrickson here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Blues fell to the Winnipeg Jets last night. They fall to them 4-2. They'll be back in action on Thursday as they visit the Calgary Flames. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 8. This SportsCenter update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined now by Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, here on 101 ESPN. Kerbs is joining us live from beautiful Calgary, Canada, Ontario. Where's Calgary at? Which province is Calgary?
Calgary, Alberta, man.
Alberta.
Good God.
He's up in Alberta where he's watching the Blues practice today. Kerbs, how you doing, man?
Doing good. We're sitting at their Olympic practice facility, Hockey Canada's facility. There's like 4 rinks here, and just outside is the old ski jumps and the runs from the 1988 Olympics that are still in use. The one that made Eddie the Eagle famous, which you guys have probably had to look up. But really cool facility here. They got an indoor luge track, like literally an ice indoor luge track here. So it's not hard to wonder why Canada is so good at the Olympic sports.
I'll have to go check out Calgary, Canada some point. It's like saying in the beautiful St. Louis, North America.
No, St. Louis, United States. It's basically the same thing.
Oh, beautiful Calgary, Canada.
I had a brain melt. I was like, wait, which province is that? It's got to be Ontario, right? We're right there. With like basically opposite side of Canada, but Curves, St. Louis, Maine. That's what I've always said. All right, so
Alberta beef. Just remember, Alberta beef.
Yeah. What is it? 12 degrees up there today, Curbs? A balmy 12 degrees.
Yeah,
I've heard.
hovering around 11.
Nice.
Good. Wait.
Just went right off of Jordan or Joe Hofer's mask. Ouch. It was 11 degrees. Listen, it wasn't too bad in Winnipeg. It was in the 30s to 40s, and we landed. And the planes, we're starting to land in Calgary last night about 12:30 here local time, and you're going, God, it even just looks cold outside. There was that cold, foggy haze over the ground. Part of it was snowing, and you're like, holy moly, it's winter up here.
I can't wait for you.
Go to a rodeo while you're there, Curbs?
No. That's the summer stampede that happens. But I was just talking to Troy Brower, who lives up about 10 minutes from here. Of course, he's part of Blues management. And we were talking about Halloween up here, and he goes, the kids have to have 2 different costumes. The one costume for indoors, and then the one when they go trick-or-treating so they get their winter coat underneath it.
Good God. They could all be Stay Puft Marshmallows for Halloween and just walk around with those coats on.
That is exactly what I said. Ghostbusters is a popular outfit up here, apparently.
Damn it, Curbs. You and I have worked together for too long coming up with that one.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll find you'll try to name some line, and we'll fix that closeness.
Yeah, that's very true.
We've spent 2.5 minutes filibustering before we have to talk about this.
Calgary, Canada.
No, you're right. I did that on purpose. That way we wouldn't have to spend too much time on what happened last night.
Touche to you.
Curbs, is this offense salvageable? And if so, what needs to happen for that to take place?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you just got to, simply put, bury your chances. I mean, think of 2 breakaways for Jordan Kyrou last night, an open net for Brandon Saad, another whiff on a one-timer. And even if 2 of those go in, we're probably not worried about the offense today. We're probably talking about a Blues win. If nothing else, at worst, we're talking about an overtime game again. So, look, more so than the scoring, it's just the chances, to only get 4 shots on goal in a period, 3 in a period, 6 in a period. That's just not enough. So they've got to generate more. And, there were 3 or 4 glorious opportunities that we think the guys missed opportunities to shoot. Nick Leddy, for one, came down the wing and did it. So, they're missing some opportunities to shoot the puck, to go in for that one extra pass. And I think some of these guys got to get a little more selfish and just start pumping it to the goal.
Curbs, do you feel like, and it's 5 games in, and I'm sure Craig Berube is going to want to maintain kind of some consistency, but at some point, do you look at maybe shuffling up all 4 lines to just get a different feel so that you can try a different chemistry?
Well, I don't have to speculate at this point. Watching what they just ran in practice here, looks like the 4 lines are going to remain pretty much the same. The only change we could see based on what we're seeing here is it looks as if it's going to be Marco Scandella paired up with Robert Bortuzzo tomorrow night. That's and because they've got Perunovic skating with Tucker right now. So that looks like that'll be the pairing that we'll see, the only change we'll see. So the thing of it is, Alex, I don't know that there's a whole lot of, different opportunities. Do you put Jake Neighbors in that top 6? I like the way he's working and kind of coming along. I don't think I wouldn't mind changing up a power play unit. I wouldn't mind seeing Verana on that top power play unit with his shot, to be honest with you.
I just like to see more Verana in general, Curbs.
Yeah, well, and that's the challenge. Now, the interesting part about that, Brandon, is when you start to look at the minutes and how it goes, do you get more production, less production, depending on the minutes played? But, yeah, at some point in time, does Verana move up into the top 6? Now, had Buchnevic's injury been longer term, I think there's a chance at some point you would have seen that. Well, with Pavel coming back, and he looked tentative in the first period last night. It looked like he didn't want to get contact, but he definitely got more comfortable, felt better as the game went on, and then obviously had an impact with 2 points in the game. But I think had you seen Pavel Buchnevich out longer, you might have had your wish.
So, Curbs, we had this conversation earlier in the show. Do you feel like the Blues have enough game breakers on the team to get this offense back to what we expected it to be?
Well, Craig Berube is absolutely losing his mind right now, barking on the ice. That's fantastic. We're broadcasting practice live.
I know, I love it.
There's passion out there. Do they have? Look, you know what? In all honesty, they don't have that one guy, I don't think, at the moment that could change the game with a snap of a wrist like Vladimir Tarasenko did for so many years. That's truly what they're missing in one avenue. Now, I think if Jordan Kyrou can become that, guys, I got to tell you, and I don't know if I'm on my own island. I haven't had a chance to talk with the coaches and do a deeper dive on this one. For being a lightning rod of a player a lot last season, especially, with his defensive effort, I think Jordan Kyrou has really done a good job this year on a lot of that.
With you on that one. Totally agree.
Yeah, so can he become that guy? I think he is. I think there's another level of creativity with the hockey puck to see from Jordan Kyrou at some point in time. And then, more importantly, guys, maybe that game breaker or that changer you're talking about, it's just got to be better execution between Robert Thomas and Kyrou and his line mates. I mean, sometimes these passes are hot, they're not flat, and I think there's just got to be all-around better opportunity there. And if that happens, it solves your problem.
Curbs, we'll get you out of here on this. We just got another minute or two. What have you thought of Robert Thomas to start to the season?
Just okay. Like I was just saying, I think there's an opportunity for him to make better plays. When he takes shots and they go up and they miss and he does the banner reader, I'd like to see less of that and just a little more confidence in his play, even when they miss the net. But there's clearly a lot more to Robert's game.
Curbs, we appreciate the time, man. Enjoy yourself up there in beautiful Calgary, Canada, and we'll talk with you again soon.
Yeah, all right. Can't wait to get home to beautiful St. Louis, United States. It'll be great.
Thank you. Good to talk with you as always. That's Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, one of the best in the business, joining us as he does each and every Wednesday here on 101 ESPN.
You idiot. Calgary, Canada. That got me so
I'm disappointed he's not going to rodeo. I'm sure there's something going on.
He said it's a summertime thing. You think you're doing a damn rodeo when it's 11 degrees outside?
Everything's indoors.
That's true. When you're in Calgary, Canada.
I don't know why it would change if you're doing a rodeo inside.
Well, the bulls are cold, man.
Keep them indoors.
Well, maybe it's cold indoors. If it's 11 degrees outside, it's got to be cold inside.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
You think Curbs is cold right now? No.
Probably, yes.
My man has a nice coat on.
I guarantee he's wearing 4 layers right now.
Jamie probably doesn't wear any layers while he's up there. He's just like...
Jamie lived it. I think Jamie probably walks around in his Speedo in this weather.
You think he's even got the Speedo on?
No, God, no. Standing in front of the mirror with the curtains open.
If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page. Calgary, Canada! 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. By the way, we've been presented on YouTube on the Air Alliance team cams so far today. So if you missed anything, you can also check it out there. 101 ESPN STL is where you go to find it. You can always watch us on YouTube during the show or afterwards. You can go back and rewatch everything. T-Bone does a great job of being able to mark through of what the segments were. So if you were like, I missed this specific segment, go back and listen to it that way. You can hear about how Illinois never gets the in-state recruits if you go back to the 1 o'clock.
That won't be on there, but this segment will be labeled BK Learns About Calgary, Canada.
BK Learns Geography.
Geometry, right?
With the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber.
Yeah. Alex.
Brandon.
Today's been a tough day talking about your beloved Blues.
It's been all right, though, man. I've powered through. The emotional side of it has kind of moved on, and now I'm focused on the next game.
All I'm going to say is that I like looking at numbers. I like looking at the black and white of the sheet and finding out, okay, is this real? Is what we're watching sustainable? Is it good? Is it bad? Where are we at? And the Blues have 120 shots through the first 5 games of the season, which is the fewest that they've had through 5 games since 2005. They've only had that 2 times in the entirety of their franchise history through 5 games. By the way, this is at 5-on-5. 1978, they ended up with the number 2 overall pick after that season. And 2005, which they ended up with the number 1 overall pick. I'm genuinely worried about this team. They have 10 goals through 5 games. That is the 3rd worst mark in franchise history. The last time they were that bad through 10 games was 1990. The offense is a legitimate concern to me. Now, we'll give them credit. I think the defense has been a lot better. And most importantly, Jordan Bennington has been outstanding to start out the season. You couldn't ask for him to be any better. There's 1 goal last night you probably want back. Other than that, I haven't said that a single other time so far this season, which is pretty damn impressive. This offense, I don't know if it's salvageable. I heard what Kerbs had to say. I hope he ends up being right. But through 5 games, I have not gotten a whole lot of signs that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, the chances are the part that's probably most concerning through all of this. Like, you talk about how this team can score goals, but we're also talking about the chances that they're getting, and it's a lot of one-and-dones. And I just wanted to look at this. 1977, you said, was the year? 78. So that year was, I mean, their roster at best was a 22-year-old Bernie Federko, and then the 2005 roster, like we were talking about a team that was down to its bare minimum studs to try and figure it out. So those teams didn't have the game breakers. Sure. This team does.
Does it? That's what I think we're going to learn.
And that's what we're going to find out.
Then they're going to be okay. If Robert Thomas is the player that they think he is, he's going to help. If Jordan Kyrou is the player they think he is, that's going to help. If they can get Pavel Buchnevich back and healthy, that's going to help a lot.
If they get more ice time for Jakub Vrana and we feel like he's that guy, you've got the pieces in place. It's just this is the season to prove it to the Blues.
100%.
And Jordan Kyrou has proved it in the past. Robert Thomas has proved it in the past, but not as the number 1 guys. Now is when you have to show that you're the top dogs.
Corsi rating is not the end-all, be-all. I think it can be overstated sometimes. Basically, if you're curious what it means, it's how often are you controlling the puck? How often are you in the offensive zone? It's more complex than that, but that's the simplest way to put it. This year, the Blues have a 39% Corsi rating, which means, on average, the opposing team has the puck. They're generating offense themselves about 61% of the time. That is the worst Corsi rating that they've had through 5 games over the last decade. And it's the worst by a wide margin. The previous worst was 44%, and that was last year through the first 5 games of the season. I just want to see them be able to generate a little more offense, man. I understand that you're going to be in your own zone more because of the way that you're playing defensively. I get that. But you've got to be able to create and then sustain that ozone time. Get the cycle game going a little bit. They've got players to do it, I think. I just need to see it.
I read a piece from Joe Haggerty of the Boston Bruins because they're off to a 6-0 start, which nobody saw coming when you lose Bergeron and Krejci. And Brad Marchand talked about how it's 5-man support. That every time we're in the offensive zone, we know that 2 guys are behind the 1 player going after the puck. I haven't seen that yet this season with the exception of the Pittsburgh Penguins game. You get back to that, Corsi rating is going to go up, and we're talking about more offense.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Jamie Rivers is going to be joining the show live from Calgary, Canada, coming up here in just a little bit. You guys can listen to us again tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll be celebrating the commitment of Ryan Wingo. Feels like this one's getting a little weird. Fingers crossed that ends up being the case for the University of Missouri. We'll break that all down tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.